Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello and welcome everyone to another exciting episode of Knights of Last Call Livestream. Here with you this Thursday saying hi to everybody. We got a poll going. If you're new, if you're joining, we'll leave it going for a couple minutes. But make sure you give us an answer as you're coming in. Hi, I'm Derek, Knights of Last Call. Welcome everyone. What an exciting week it's been. We had a great episode of Quest for the Frozen Flame on Tuesday. we went a little off the rails there. We had a lot of let's just say we had a lot of shenanigans going on, to say the least. It was pretty exciting. There may or may not be a sentient hatchet named after David Hasselhoff. You know, you can never tell. Henry, sir, good evening to you as well. Sporting that sexy, sexy loyalty badge, Henry is an adventurer of Last Call, a member of our YouTube support member group, which you can do to gain special emojis and cool loyalty badges as well. So thank you for that. It's pretty sweet. Damien says his badge is still blue. Well, Damien, it might be next month. I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe it's after 6 months and you're just at 6 months. I don't know. But you should definitely, maybe have to change it to 5 months because of the way that they count their math. It's like Northern Reaches math. You have to like subtract 1 and then plus 2 days is actually tomorrow. But yeah, interesting. I'm colorblind, so I'm a bad person to ask, but it looks blue on my screen. So anyways, but thank you to everybody who is a supporter of the channel. Donnie is our current hype boss. You'll notice that Donnie is sitting at 72 of 179 hit points because Donnie had a massive $100 tip in Tuesday's Quest for the Frozen Flame game, and yeah, what a generous offering there, all to make the hatchet both intelligent and apparently evil. But you're not here for Northern Reaches, are you? No, you are here for class tier rankings, the mid tiers. So welcome everyone. Now we know that it takes people about 5 to 10 minutes sometimes to get in here. So I'm going to let everybody, do their thing and sort of make their way in. I'm not going to try to rush it. Yeah, we'll make sure that everybody has a chance to get in here. Sorry, I got to bring up my YouTube statistics so that I know. I gotta know who's even here. Bob is logging AARs as he speaks. All right, we got 33 people already. That's actually pretty good. Last time we had a lot of people in here for our mid tiers. So we got a poll going on right now with almost 30 votes. Kyle, welcome. Kyle, we'll see you in a few minutes. About how you feel about my low tier rankings. And well, it looks like most of you agree. That's good to see. A couple of you, one of you says I was completely wrong and totally off base. I appreciate your honesty. That's great. 2 or 3 of you said I got it, that you disagreed with the rankings. But a couple of people even said that they agree spot on. So I think that is an indication that we're in the right track. So definitely good to see there. We'll let that poll continue to run there for a few minutes. All right. Let's speed through this like a party of fighters through an extreme encounter. Ain't that the truth? All right. Well, let's take a look here, shall we? Bum, 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 bum. Sorry. Oh, there we go. All right. So here is our new tier listing, sort of all set to go. Now, as a reminder for everybody, we've got the previous tier ranking over there in the corner. And you know what I'm going to do here real quick? I'm just going to expand this really quick just so we can talk about it. So this was our tier ranking from last time. And I'm going to do a couple of things really quick just to sort of make sure that we set expectations. I did this last time, and a lot of people didn't listen or pay attention. So I'm going to say it again. Oh,
Henry
we got a tip.
$10 seemed a bit harsh on the hybrid, versatile classes. Magus is strong on the early levels. And my poor alchemists.
Well, Henry, thank you very much for that tip. I do agree that the hybrids have to pay a cost. And I honestly, I think that is something that TTRPGs have never really gotten right. There is this inherent fear in the balancing mechanics of these games that if you make people versatile and you let someone, say, be good at skills and you let somebody be good in combat, or if you make somebody good at casting and you make someone good in combat, that if you make them even remotely good at both things, that it will somehow step on the toes of the people who are super dedicated and super focused in that department. And in my personal opinion, could be different from yours, I think that traditionally, this is not just a Pathfinder 2 problem, but I think that traditionally they come down way too hard on these sort of hybrid classes, and they really, really over penalize them for having that versatility. And especially in a game where the math is so tight, like Pathfinder 2, you don't really have to actually come down that hard on somebody in order to make them really be substantially less powerful. And in the instance of the Summoner and the Magus, and I'll get into this in a second, but these conversations about tier rankings, they are not just my rankings. They are also sort of an amalgamation of a lot of conversations that have been happening on the Knights of the Last Call Discord, and in particular, a couple of individuals, including Vin and Strat, who I think really have a good perspective for the mechanical elements of the game. People who like to tinker and get into the nitty-gritty of the math, who've really dug into it, who have helped me kind of discuss these ratings. Overall, I tend to feel like that they agree with me that a lot of these hybrid classes don't need the kind of penalty they will. And so, for example, the Summoner, it's easy. One thing that this is not new, this was before even our low tier, but one thing that was said to me, which I made a lot of sense to me, is that you shouldn't think of the Summoner as a caster class with this melee Eidolon. You should think of it as a melee Eidolon that has this sort of, quasi-caster attached to it. And so really, I think of the Summoner and the Magus both as sort of these hybrid combat caster classes, and I just think they went too harsh with only giving them 2 spells of the 2 highest levels, so 4 spells total. I just think that's too harsh. I really do. I think that you could have given them more spells, and I think it would have been completely fine. I don't think any wizard or sorcerer would have felt underserved because those classes got more castings and more spells and were able to do more things. All right, so a couple of things. Number one, these rankings represent, from my perspective, the mechanical usefulness and power of a character class in what I am calling a boilerplate standard Pathfinder 2 adventure and or campaign. A boilerplate. Now, I heard a lot of crazy things, including on Reddit, where people were saying things like, well, this is Pathfinder 2. 1/3 of the encounters are combat, 1/3 of the encounters are exploration, and 1/3 of the encounters are social. Now, I'd like to live in that world too. It sounds like a world where the 3 pillars are evenly represented and your characters are exposed to a variety of different encounter types. But I have no idea what kind of adventure or adventure path or campaign you are running, because I think I speak for everyone here when I say I have no idea what you're talking about. The vast majority of Pathfinder 2 adventures and adventure paths, whether they're home run, homebrew, homemade, or store bought, are at least 50 to 60 to 80% combat. That's just the straight up the way it is. I mean, the number of encounters that literally start with they attack and they fight to death. It's like it's a meme for a reason, because it happens all the time. And so I am weighting these character classes, yes, towards a preponderance of combat, because those are the encounters that happen the most. Secondly, social encounters or exploration type encounters tend to be much more forgiving and much more loose in what goes, in what you're in the consequences for what happens if you don't succeed. A lot of exploration type encounters, if they don't succeed, the adventure stops. And so a lot of times there's a million different ways with a million different skill options for a character to be able to get through there. And they don't want to, they're not going to TPK the party in a social encounter. They're not going to TPK the party in an exploration encounter. If your party is going to fail, the place where look, this is a role-playing game. I respect that. It is a given. I think I speak for everyone here when I say the mechanics of the game matter the most in combat, because that is where most GMs and most campaigns and most groups play the most tightly to the letter and the raw and the rule of combat. So for example, if you're in a social encounter and you role play, I'm using that term in quotes because I think everything's role playing, but what I mean is you speak in character and you give this great explanation for why why the Duke should join your alliance. A lot of GMs will go, oh yeah, the Duke is so motivated by your words. They join your rebellion. And you don't even have to make a diplomacy check. Look at us, we're such good role players. Well, yeah, okay, so then the mechanics for diplomacy and attitudes and requests don't matter as much in your game because you're just role playing through it. I question whether in that same example, you're in combat and you make this really awesome description of how you decapitate the Lich's head, and the GM goes, no need for an attack roll, you just kill him. That was really great role playing. Even GMs who really focus on that stuff we don't roll dice, when they get into combat, they're rolling dice. So this means that the mechanics, which is all a character class is, by the way, how cool it is to role play, how fun it is to role play, is not something that we should or need to balance. I mean, we could talk about it because it's interesting and fun to do so. We could say something about how the cleric maybe functions fine as a mechanical class, but it's really boring to play a heal bot unless you like spamming 2 and 3 action heals for the rest of your life and only taking class feats that expand your aura, let you exclude people from your aura, make you roll d10s, give you 3 action as 2 action, right? Like if we want to talk about that, that's fine. Some people might enjoy that type of class, some people might not. Some people might say a fighter is boring. Some people might say, I like hitting and critting all the time. It's way better than missing and doing nothing. So I'm not talking about how cool or fun a character class is to roleplay. That's a silly and ultimately defeating way to sort of judge anything. We got a super chat from our Australian friend, Self-Confessed Cynic. Self-Confessed Cynic, hold on a sec here. Let me lower this low tier here real quick so we can see what he sent. There we go. FBT doesn't need dice, so class doesn't matter. Exactly. And Self-Confessed Cynic Vin helped me create these tier rankings, so blame him as much as you blame me. All right, let me wrap up this poll here. So final vote looks like coming up here in the chat. Well, overwhelmingly, most people were on point for it. So that's the first things first. That is how I am judging these criteria. Second thing that I am judging these criteria on. S through F. I think we all understand what A, B, C, and D mean. So let me talk about F and let me talk about S. S to me means that the class has enough mechanical advantages that I think it is too good for the game. I think that the class has so much mechanical advantages compared to other classes that do similar things that in some ways it should probably be nerfed. a little bit. Oh, but I know somebody who made a barbarian that was way more effective than my friend's fighter. Good for you. I am looking at this objectively. I am looking at this with numbers and math and the power of feats and features. And the fact of the matter is, some of these classes are they're just a little too good. So that's S. Let's talk about F. First things first. I am of the belief in this game that you could have a character class, let's say a martial character class. They get expert, they start with trained proficiency in martial weapons. They get expert proficiency at 5. They get master proficiency at 13. They get trained in armor, maybe heavy, medium, something like that. That goes up to expert somewhere around, 11 or 12. They get master armor proficiency somewhere around 18 or 19. And then they get some saves. So maybe they start off at expert, trained expert, and then by the end of the game, they're like master, expert, master, or legendary expert, expert, or something like that, okay? They get weapon specialization at 7. They get greater weapon specialization at 15. And they get some perception increases. No other features, no class feats. Literally just, I can strike with my weapon at the expected attack bonus. My armor class scales appropriately. My scaves scale appropriately. This is for like a melee character. That character class, we'll call it the commoner class, the warrior, basic warrior class. I am of the opinion, in fact, I almost want to test this with my Discord. I am of the opinion that that character class would function fairly okay in Pathfinder 2. Maybe not against an extreme encounter or a series of severe encounters, but against moderate encounters and maybe the occasional severe encounter. I actually think that that character class with no features and no feats would function just fine if they had the appropriate potency runes and fundamental runes on their weapons and armor for their level. So under that set of beliefs, all of these classes function. Because, so when people say, oh, an Alchemist works, yes, an Alchemist works. Because again, I told you that I think that something was just proficiency. Nin, you're getting ahead of me, Nin. But yes, Nin, I am describing an Eidolon. I am describing an Eidolon without evolutions, and I am describing an Eidolon without any, focus or cantrip boosts from the summoner. You're exactly right. Even an Eidolon gets a little bit they get their synthesis upgrades and the whatever they're called. That to me would be like sub F, okay? That class, okay? My point is, just because I'm rating something in an F doesn't mean that the class doesn't work. It's Pathfinder 2, okay? You could roll in the dirt and I think that would work some of the time, okay? Like, it's not about whether the class is a failure or not. We rated spells F, and it's like, well, yes, if you cast the spell, it would still produce some sort of magical effect. My point was that in the context of the game, this class has fundamental issues with what I think allow it to work as a effective combatant in the context of the rest of the classes, okay? A class should be a C, right? So again, I think that when I say that something is an F, I am not saying that the class does not do anything. Clearly, that's not the case. I mean, they have proficiencies, they have skills, they have some abilities, they have some spells. Of course, they can do something. I'm just saying that, like, for example, we'll use the grading scale as an example. You can go take a test and you can get 50% of the answers correct. You could get 55% of the answers correct on the test. You got the majority of the questions right on your exam. That's still an F. An F does not mean 0%. Okay? An F could be a 58%. An F could be a 59%. And that is what we mean here when I say F. I'm saying that, yes, you did get answers right, but you didn't get enough answers right for me to consider you to be a passing grade. Okay? So that is what F means. All right? I just wanted to make sure that we cleared that up. We got a couple super chats. Super chat from Guardian of the Rune. You could probably die /TPK a lot easier in exploration than combat in Forbidden Lands, but that is what it focuses on. Agreed. Forbidden Lands, I would argue combat is also very dangerous in Forbidden Lands. But yes, dying from exposure or from starvation are very much elements of that game, and which is why things like resource dice and things tied to that are so much more important and engaging from a mechanics perspective. Pathfinder 2 really skirts the surface on that stuff because it never really expects you to die of starvation. They might have rules for it, but I think the number of people who have died of starvation in Pathfinder 2 has got to be pretty close to 0. Super chat from Vin, self-confessing. Right, this isn't 3.5. Bad can still work. So I guess I would first by saying, hats off to Pathfinder 2, right? Because even their bad classes still function, and they still can do something. Again, I argue that a character without features or feats could still contribute for a lot of encounters. And so certainly when you add things on top of that, we're talking about something quite different. All right. So that's our baseline. So let's get into it. All right, we are going to start with the fighter because that's easy, and the fighter is still S. Yes, Ruinsmith hit. So fighter S. Yes, exactly. Fighter still S. Because I
am strong.
Look,
Strong.
If the fighter got to master at 6 and stopped, we wouldn't be talking about this. But the fact is you get higher and higher level, and I didn't get a chance to talk about this last time, so I'm going to talk about it this time. Things that are overlooked about the fighter is people focus on the +2, which is fine, meaning the fighter is a master when everybody else is an expert, so they get a +2 to hit. The fighter becomes legendary at 13 when everybody else becomes a master. So they're at +2 to hit. Okay? But here's the thing. There are other things that tie off of that proficiency level than just your attack bonus. Sure, the fighter's +2 higher, but it also means that the fighter's weapon specialization, and we're not there yet because that's not till level 15, and mid-tier is defined as 8 through 14, but your weapon specialization means that you are doing more damage. Your greater weapon specialization means that you are doing more damage because that legendary weapon proficiency means that, or master weapon proficiency early means that you are adding more damage. It means that starting at level 5, the fighter can aid as a master. You won't even get your skills to master until 7. Starting at 13, the fighter can aid at legendary. That's a +4 circumstance bonus. And not only that, because they have a higher bonus, it means that they are more likely to aid, or critically aid as really the case may be. And when they do aid, it is for an additional point over their other, melee combatants. Now, I'm pretty open with what I let people aid with. I'll let someone in combat aid an attack roll or strike with an athletics check if it makes sense in the fiction. But I know that a lot of GMs out there are not so, benevolent. And they basically say, no, if you're striking, you need to aid with a strike. Well, okay, well, my barbarian goes into strike. My legendary proficient fighter comes in and assists you. I got a 30, boom, +4 circumstance bonus at level 13. That's huge. So the fighters obviously have this huge advantage, but they also continue to gain incredible feats, really great saves, incredible perception, because perception is tied to initiative in this game, and fighters need to go first. So they also end up, ironically, with incredible perception as well. They also, in a game that already gives them really good class feats, they get features which give them flexible feats that they can add on as, you know, these sort of almost wizard preparation spell feats. So you're getting more class feats than everybody else, and your class feats are all really, really good. So, you know, some people might say the fighter is boring. Some people might say the fighter is a lot of fun. But ultimately, I think that the fighter's core package of abilities in a game where math is so important, the fact that they continue to just be that much better mathematically, and the fact that they don't have to jump through any hoops to do it. They're just that good. Everybody else has to do their shtick. The barbarian has to rage. The hunter has to hunt prey. The monk has to enter a stance. The champion has to have his allies being attacked. The magus, she has to strike and recharge and use a shitty arcane, you know, cascade focus spell. You know, everybody has a shtick that they have to do. The fighter doesn't. The fighter just fights. And so, because the game is so mathematically tight, the fighter is still going to reign supreme as S. Now, one of the things I want to do for each of these is I want to let you all, chime in with polls. So, I am going to put a poll up, and let everybody here ask. I should have had this up while I was kind of talking about it, but that is my pitch. But, you know, let it not be said that as we get into the mid-tier, I certainly respect everyone here opinion, because, you know, we've all played a lot of low-level Pathfinder 2. That's just the nature of the beast. And as much as I respect these mid-tier and the subsequent high-tier, I can't argue the fact that most people are never going to get to those levels. A lot of campaigns end before that. Characters die. People get bored. They retire, or they just quit the campaign, or the campaign falls apart. But the fact is, my experience at mid-tier and certainly at high-tier Pathfinder 2 is not nearly as rich and as in-depth as it is at the low levels. And so I will be the first to admit that in some instances, there may be something that I missed that maybe you all have not. And if you're watching on the video on demand, if you're watching after this live stream, and if you feel particularly strong about a certain rating, just go ahead and leave a comment. And while you're there, go ahead and like and subscribe if you're not already done so. And maybe check out that link, patreon.com/Knights of Last Call, patreon.com/Knights of Last Call, because that is where all this magic is happening and where our incredible, amazing Patreon Discord is located as well. All right, let people vote here. Let me go check something real quick. All right. Oh, we almost got 70 people tonight. Well, welcome, everyone. Happy to have you here, and we love to see you.
Dungeons and Dragons. Satan's game.
But we're talking about Pathfinder 2 tonight. How about that one D&D release, huh? All right, so let me close. Bob says I can close it. It's overwhelming. All right, so good. I think we're all on the same page here, which is good to know. That we're not completely off base here. Landslide. We got a super chat coming in from our friend Scratch Paper Games with the incredible logo. Which classes have the most low-level charm? That's a great question. That is actually a really good question. Charm. Self-confessed cynic says interesting. Well, let's talk about that real quick. I think that's a great point. Far be it from me to get distracted, but Scratch Paper Games did go ahead and drop some money there. I'll say this. I think at low level, the damage bonus that you get from Barbarian is percentage-wise probably at its largest, and there's certainly a fun allure to raging and doing a ton of damage when you're low level. So I think the Barbarian has a lot of charm at low level. I think the Fighter has a lot of charm because, they just start off with this massive bonus to hit, +9. It's just massive. You're going to hit a lot. You're going to crit and do double damage. I think it's fun. I would say that the War Priest from the Cleric is also kind of at its best at low level. We'll actually talk about the War Priest here in a second. And I think that could be a lot of fun. And, all the casters suffer because they don't have a lot of spells, but the Sorcerer does get a lot of spells rather quickly. And I think that's definitely very appealing. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm trying to think here of classes. I don't think the Wizard has a lot of charm at low level. I'll agree to that. I don't think the Rogue has a lot of charm at low level. I don't think, I really don't think the bard. I could see the monk. I see some people saying monk in the chat, and I think people are saying bard's so strong early. Okay, I'll buy it. You know what? Actually, you know what? I see self-confessed cynic said rogue and swash, and I see Patrick saying rogue. That's true, because the rogue starts off with like 11 skills at trained, and that's like, right, and those are at this level, that's the best it can be. You're like, oh my gosh, I could do everything, and I could do anything awesomely. So I do think that's really cool. And also at low levels, the Magus, only gets up to 4 spells, but at the first couple levels, everybody basically only has like 3 or 4 or 5 spells anyways. So the Magus has a lot of charm, and you're like, oh, I only have 4 spells, but the wizard only has like 5. So that's fine. Cut to 10 levels later, when the sorcerer has 29 spells, and you have 4, and now you're like, okay, man, the bloom is kind of off the rose here. I really just feel kind of like a one-shot fighter here. So all right, so I would say those classes are probably pretty interesting. Thank you for the tip, Scratch Paper Games. We love it. We know you love you. There we go. You know what? For Scratch Paper Games, he gets a horizon. Open up this Diet Mountain Dew. Oh, Runesmith, I definitely respect the wizard because of Drain Bonded item. Yeah, the wizard gets as many spells as the sorcerer, 100%. I like the wizard a lot. The wizard's downside to the sorcerer is honestly prepared casting. In theory, in my mind, in my dreams, prepared casting is the stronger of the two, but it's a quirk of the way that Pathfinder 2 works out, and something that we have discussed at length, of course, on the Patreon Discord. But I really do have to agree with folks like Self-Confessed Cynic that in Pathfinder 2, I actually think in most cases, spontaneous casting is actually a little bit, especially with the signature spell, is actually a little bit better. I think a lot of times people find themselves kind of like, man, I wish I would have taken one more of this spell or one less of this spell. I took it at the wrong level. I wish I could use a lower level slot for this because I don't need it, or I wish I could use a higher level slot for this. So it's kind of a problem. But I think if you're playing a game, maybe a not as adventure path game, maybe a more sandbox game or a more mega dungeon exploration based game where you're not playing to the adventure so much, where preparation can really make a difference, then I could agree. But ultimately, I think the real problem with preparation is scrolls. And a sorcerer only gets the spells that they know that they're going to cast over and over and over and over again. And then for those spells that they kind of need, maybe they just get scrolls. And here come folks coming in here as well, talking about the scrolls. So I do think scrolls just ended up being the death of prepared casting. And I actually do agree. I agree with that. Especially because in this edition, in the previous edition, Pathfinder 1, the scroll's caster level was set to the level that you made the scroll. So if you're a level 14 wizard and you pull out a level 3 scroll of fear, or a level 3 scroll of, the DC would have been like 14. It would have been ridiculously low. I actually think that's exactly right. I think the DC for a magical item in Pathfinder 1 was 10 plus the spell's level plus the ability attribute modifier that was the minimum that you would have needed to cast that spell. And since in order to cast a level 3 spell, you would have needed a 13 in your primary stat, and a 13 is a +1. I think the level 3 DC was 13 + 1, so 14. Not whatever your caster DC is, but now I could be a 15th level caster, and I could pull out a level 3 scroll or a level 2 scroll and the DC is my DC. That's crazy. That makes scrolls so much more powerful in Pathfinder 2 than they ever were in Pathfinder 1, by the way. Scrolls are way stronger. And I mean, we could do a whole, talk about that, but for, one of the things that I learned when we just finished up our high level Pathfinder 2 campaign is, you get to a certain point in the game where, yes, buying high level items is expensive, but a lot of the most powerful spells in the game are lower level than you. And because of the fact that the economy of Pathfinder 2 is exponential, by the time you are 2 or 3 levels higher than you were, let's say at level 5, the amount of money you have is not like, oh, I've got a couple hundred more gold. No, you have thousands and thousands of more gold. And then a couple levels after that, you have tens of thousands and tens of thousands more gold. So that level 3 scroll, which casts slow, one of the most powerful spells in the game, guess what? It's still 9 gold or whatever it costs, some ridiculously low cost. And you have tens of thousands of gold. You could literally buy, I mean, I'm guilty of this. My character, my high level character in Pathfinder 2 had a bag of holding or a haversack, which had like 80 or 100 plus scrolls in it. Because the cost becomes so cheap. And the effect is scaled to your level. So it's, it's just crazy. Honestly, my character didn't use wands because it wasn't worth the money. A wand of an equivalent level would have cost me like 8 or 9 scrolls. And I'd rather just get 8 or 9 castings of the spell. So anyways. You know what? I actually think Nin has a really good point here as well, something that a lot of people forgot about. I know this for sure, Nin, because I played for the first 15 levels of that campaign that I was just in as a player. I was a cloistered cleric, prepared caster. And I gotta tell you, once I got to like level 9, maybe level 9, certainly level 11, my God, I had 18 or 21 spell slots, and each one needed to be picked before we went adventuring. So you got to sit there and think about it. And God forbid the spells that scale, because you're like, well, what level should I take Dispel Magic at? Should I take it at my max level? Well, I only get 2 of those. So should I take, like, you're playing, like, at the end of the day, you just don't feel like doing it. And so, maybe there is an element there of, wow, you're just being lazy. But I think a lot of people play that way, and they just kind of phone it in, and they end up just taking a bunch of the same spell over and over again. And so in a way, the prepared casters end up being less flexible than the spontaneous casters. So it's a whole thing. Ryan, and these are really important. Ryan, that's a great point as well, because you're not going to have people sit around and wait, right? The fighter goes, I'm ready, I'm good to go, long rested. The champion goes, I'm good to go, I don't have any resources, I have my focus points. The sorcerer goes, let's do it, I've got all my focus points and all my spell slots. And it's like, hold on, I've got to pick 27 different slots. And so it's kind of interesting. Anyways, all right, so that's our fighter. I just wanted to go over that. So let's pick another one here. We'll pick some easy ones here first, because Bard. Again, this one surprised me at low level. The Bard was A at low level, and they're still A at medium levels. The Bard continues to impress. Now, to be clear, by the time you get into the mid levels, the Bard's really not going to be able to melee anymore. Their weapon proficiency is going to fall off. They're not going to have the dexterity or the strength to be able to compete and to hit. They really are at this point just a caster. But the cantrips, the focus spells that you do get, the power of the occult spell list is really going to be a great resource and aid to you. The bards get some incredible and amazing feats. If you go through those bards feat lists at 8 and 10 and 12, there's a lot of impressive stuff there. The bard is a full caster. They go all the way to 10th level. They're kind of like they're the occult caster. And they, unlike some of these other caster classes, get some really awesome, really intriguing, really interesting feats. And they get some cool stuff around skills and using skill feats, and I really appreciate that, and I like that. I think the bard is just a great mix of strong and competitive powers that give you a lot of flexibility, give you a lot of punch for your power. The occult list is very strong. We gave the Bard the A at low levels. The Bard is probably even a little bit better in the medium levels. I agree with what Stephen Palmer said here, that the Bard is probably the best designed caster in the sense that they all get spells. Everybody gets spells. Yeah, the Divine list isn't as good as the Primal and the Occult list, which aren't as good as the Arcane list. We know that. But the Bard feels unique. It gets this unique niche with these bardic cantrips, with these composition cantrips, with these composition focus spells. They feel like they occupy this cool, unique niche. And their class feats let you lean into that. And I really appreciate that, and I really like that. And unlike a lot, now to be fair, a lot of caster classes, Druid, Cleric, Summoner, just a lot of these classes have feats that let you pick up new focus spells, or in some cases, new cantrips. The problem is, in my experience, most focus spells and cantrips suck. So the Bard composition focus spells and cantrips, I think, hold their own. And again, Inspire Courage, Inspire Greatness, Inspire Defense, just incredible feats, spells, compositions that really do something unique and powerful. And I think the Bard continues to impress. I know I like it. So, definitely one of a surprise, because, again, the Bard should not have been as good as it is. So we're going to put a poll up here. So our Bard last time was A. And this time we got a poll. Do you think it should stay A, or do you think it should go S or B? I've made my case, but I'm gonna let the chat here weigh in on what they think it should be. Compositions are neat. I agree, Anthony. I think they are fun. I think, and they feel. I mean, I made fun during the All Spells Ranked of Occult, because the Occult is sort of also the Bardic list. And I was like, oh yeah, tentacles coming out from my soul. That's very Bardic. Composition, focus spells, and cantrips actually do feel Bardic. And I think that's one of the reasons I like them. The Inspire Courage, the Allegro, right? It feels musical. It feels like you're being strengthened by the power of song and of music. That I like. So big fan of that. Self-confessed cynic. And the reason the Bard is not S is because, one, we're assuming a normal party of 4 players, max 2 martial, and 2, they don't have anything near game breaking. True, the Bard does probably actually get a little bit better when you have a larger party, especially a party full of martials, because then that bonus from, say, Inspire Courage is getting sent out across many people. All right, well, I am going to end the poll, and we'll see how we did. All right. Well. Ooh. Archives of Nethys is down, huh? That's unfortunate. I don't know what happened to our poll, but it looked like everybody said A. Hopefully it'll show up in chat. Sorry about that. Nin says the Bard feels a bit suffocating action economy wise to play to me. Obviously you with the Bard, again, once you're at the mid tier, you're probably not going to be attacking. So I think most of the time with a Bard, you're going to be ideally casting a spell and casting like a 1-action cantrip or focus spell. So that's like the ideal Bard turn. Cast a spell and cast a composition cantrip. If you have to move, then things get a little bit more interesting. But hopefully you're hasted or you have some other action like that, so then you can move and you can you cast a composition cantrip and cast a regular spell. I feel like it's a pretty reasonable, okay balance. So I think it's okay. All right. Next up is the cleric. That's a good point too. Lingering composition is also a good option. So let me get our poll up. All right, so we have our cleric, and I think we're going to talk here. I only have one cleric class, so we're going to talk here about the cleric as a general class. Let me pull this down real quick. Sorry there, folks. It's hard to see here sometimes. So our cleric last time was rated A, and we rated it A because we felt like at low level, where the characters do not have a lot of sustain, you don't have a lot of hit points, you don't have a lot of emergency oh shit buttons, you rely a lot more on heal. And when everybody only has 3 or 4 or 5 spell slots, getting an extra 3 or 4 or 5 spells from your divine font is just an overwhelming number. So let's talk about the cleric. First things first, I think we should talk about the elephant in the room, which is the war priest. Now I have defined, we're going to talk about the war priest first. Now I've defined mid-tier as 8 to 14. And so let me walk you through the journey, if you're not aware, of the war priest. A war priest is typically going to have a 12 wisdom, because that you have to put it in there because of your class, because the war priest can't choose their key stat to be strength. They should be able to. And so they're going to put an ancestry, a background, and a discretionary boost into strength at level 1. So they're going to start the game with a 16 strength, and they are going to be trained in the weapons that they are using. Their divine weapons, and eventually their martial weapons, which isn't as much of a boost, to be honest with you. But they are the same attack proficiency as their martial companions, but their martial companions are going to have an 18 strength, they're going to have a 16 strength, and that means that they're going to be 1 point of attack bonus behind their friends. This is going to be the case for the first 4 levels of the game. At level 5, their friends, the martial characters, are going to go up to expert proficiency. Now this would put them 3 points of attack bonus ahead, 1 from strength, 2 from proficiency. But at 5th level, when the marshals who started the game with an 18 strength upgrade their strength to 19, the bonus from the strength stays at +4, whereas our 16 strength war priest can upgrade their strength to 18. And so now they get a +4 bonus like the marshals do. So this means at level 5, the only difference between the war priest and the martial character is 2 points of proficiency bonus, because the war priest is still trained, but the marshals are experts. So you started off the game, first levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, being 1 point behind. Then at level 5, you're 2 points behind. And at level 6, you're 2 points behind. But then at level 7, the war priest goes to expert. And that means at level 7 and 8 and 9, the war priest has the exact same attack bonus as a barbarian or a monk or a ranger or a rogue. And so that for me is the sweet spot of the war priest. Level 7, level 8, and level 9. Now at level 10, you get another ability boost, and now your monks, rangers, and rogues go to 20. So now they get a 5 in their primary key stat. Your strength goes to 19, and it stays at +4. So now you're 1 point behind again. Unfortunately, it only gets worse from here. A few levels later, you hit level 13. All of these martial characters go to master. Unfortunately, the war priest, master of weaponry, never gets higher than expert. And that means that at level 13, the war priest is now not only a point behind because of their strength, they're 2 points behind because of their proficiency. They are -3 to the rest of the martial characters. And because of the nature of math in the game, I have a specific war priest build who worships this exact specific god with this exact specific alignment, and so I have true strike and harm, and okay, fine. You figured out one way to sort of overcome this massive mathematical problem. I'm going to say this. For level 7, 8, and 9, I think the war priest is as close as you're going to get to a pure Gish in this game. At 7, 8, and 9, you are attacking at the same proficiency level as all the other martial characters. And because of your second doctrine, you have all martial weapon proficiencies. And because you start off with a shield block, you could even have a weapon and a shield block, and assuming you took Emblazoned Armament, which you will because it's basically a feat tax, you're going to be able to cast spells, have a shield, have shield block, and have full martial weapon proficiency at level 7, 8, and 9. That's awesome. That might be S tier. I don't know. Because you're still a full caster. Yeah, your DC sucks. So don't be casting anything that's going to, trigger on that. But once you get to 10, and certainly once you get to 13, the War Priest falls way the hell off. They never get Master Proficiency, which is just a crime that they do not get Master Proficiency. They don't even get Legendary Proficient in Spellcaster. They get Master Proficiency so much later. Not that it matters. Their DCs are terrible and shit, but they're also going to be at a incredible, amazing penalty to hit for the rest of the game. And so as much as I would say that the War Priest is very, 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 very strong in our 7, 8, and 9 range, so at the beginning of our mid-tier, by the end of the mid-tier, I feel like they are borderline horrible. I think that they are probably a D. So I am inclined to say that the War Priest is probably on average across these levels like a B. What about our Cloistered Cleric? Before I get into it, Vortex Turtle, we should have a name for this fallacy. The War Priest can spam heroism or bless to get better hits. Yeah, Vortex Turtle, the War Priest can also spam heroism and bless on people with better attack bonuses so that they get even better hits and more criticals. The part of the problem with Pathfinder 2 is your heroism that you could cast on yourself would probably actually statistically be way, way, way better to just cast it on the fighter in your group because of the way that critical hit rules work and because of the nature of the game. So, that's kind of it's just usually better to cast the buff on the character that does a lot more damage or does a lot more, has a lot more accuracy. And that usually means the fighter or someone like the Barbarian. So my take on the Cleric is a B for the War Priest. Now let's talk about the Cloistered Cleric. I played a Cloistered Cleric, okay? I know the Cloistered Cleric. Yeah, heal is amazing. But in my experience, there are a lot of classes in Pathfinder 2 that can heal. And while at the beginning of the game, having an extra 4 spells of Divine Font was amazing, by the time you reach the later levels of the game, unless you're playing a campaign where your character literally needs to be spamming heal nonstop, you are going to be casting divine spells. And I think the divine spell list sucks. And the Cloistered Cleric doesn't do much but cast divine spells. I haven't read through every single focus spell in the game, but I can tell you, not impressed with most of the domain focus spells. The divine list is just flat out weaker. And by the time we're talking about the mid tier, the time we are talking about spells like Synesthesia and Chain Lightning and just these powerhouse bomb spells of the game, slow 2, haste, greater haste, invisibility, the cleric just misses out on all of that. And I think that they get penalized for that. I think relying on a bad, underpowered spell list without any real compelling class features is underwhelming. And lastly, let me just say, the cleric class feats are the worst in the game. The single greatest example of this is Effortless Concentration, which lets you, as a free action, sustain a spell. Witch gets it. Wizard gets it. Sorcerer gets it. Oracle every class in the game that's a spellcaster gets it, except Cleric. I don't know if that's an oversight, but they've never fixed it. It's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing. Cleric doesn't get quickened casting. At 10th level, everybody else gets quickened casting. Once a day, basically, you can cast 2 spells in a round. Awesome. Cleric can't do it. A divine sorcerer, a sorcerer with a divine bloodline, could, if they need to, take through cross-blooded evolution, heal. By the way, most arcane or occult sorcerers are probably going to take cross-blooded evolution, heal, take it as a signature spell. Now the sorcerer can take as many heals per day as they need to, and it's a signature. With quicken spell casting, a sorcerer could cast a 2-action heal and then a 2-action heal in the same turn. A cleric can literally never do that. It's crazy. It's crazy. I also, Vortex, you've also hit upon another classic fallacy for me, which is when people say, oh, it's a good thing that their class feats suck because they can take archetype class feats that well. That to me is a fact. Used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering, and Force of Will is a very powerful counter spell that allows you to cancel someone's spell, but you can cast it for free, but you have to use the spell and you have to discard a blue colored card from your hand. And people will look at a bad card and they'll say, well, that card's actually not that bad because it's blue, so you could throw it away to the Force of Will counter spell. Like, saying that having bad class feats is good because then you can take archetypes, it's that is definitely not the case. I mean, you might have been trying to be funny, so I'm not actually being like mean at you, but it is kind of crazy to me. Okay, wow. Well, 17% of you said S in the poll. 46% of you said A, which is where it was last time, and 37% of you said B. So the majority of you said A, and the slightly less minority of you said that it's a B. I have to go with B here. I'm going to have to disagree with the chat here. I don't know what you're thinking about when you say S. I definitely don't think the cleric was A at low levels. I don't think they got better. The divine list is only going to get weaker from here, kids. The last like 16 and 18 and 20, which you shouldn't count at all. You shouldn't even count what you get at 18th and 20th level because you get so little chance to play with them in the game for them to even make a material difference. But, well, Anthony, yes, it is tyranny. And, that's what you get when you get to, when you run your own YouTube channel, you get to just decide. Derek gets A tier for disagreeing with the chat. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I mean, if it had been like 10% of you thought it was, B tier, I might have, quavered a little bit, but there was still 37% of you that thought it was that B tier. The divine list is just bad. And I literally spent 6 months earlier this year playing a cleric through these levels. And let me just tell you, when I got to 15th level, I started playing a fighter. I was boring. Now we're talking about the fun part. It was a boring class, but mechanically, it just didn't do anything. It just cast heal. It didn't particularly cast heal that much better than anybody else could have cast heal. I had healing hands. I did D10s instead of D8s. Whoop-de-doo. That's an average of 1 point extra healing per spell level. So my 6th level healing heals 6 more points of healing than the sorcerer's heal or the druid's heal. It just didn't even feel like it was interesting. I felt so limited. My spell list was so limited. Mostly in spells like remove disease and neutralize poison, which I said rely on counteract checks, and that's a whole separate problem. Go see our all spells ranked videos, all 29 of them if you really want an insight on that. But I just think that the cleric pays the price here for their shitty tradition. Sorry, Divine, you suck. Okay, let's get another interesting one up here. Who's next? Alchemist is next on our list. All right, Alchemist. Last time Alchemist was an F. Let me get this. All right. Alchemist is up in the chat. So let's talk about why I think the Alchemist got a little better. Well, you get more infusions. More infusions is a good thing. I think for the Alchemist to be successful, you have to have a lot of versatility. They're essentially like a prepared caster. And I still feel that Alchemists are underpowered. I think that consumables are underpowered. The game really does seem to support this. Okay? The class functions, in my opinion, a lot better. But you at least start to feel like you can function. Now, your martial proficiency with throwing bombs and all that other stuff really takes a shit nosedive. Much like the War Priest, you're not going to get past expert. And that, to me, is a damn shame. Damien coming in with his YouTube membership elite message. Alchemist with standard martial proficiency would be perfect. I'm inclined to agree with Damien. Yeah, martial, I understood what you meant. I don't understand why the Alchemist just doesn't get proficiency with bombs, expert at 5, master at 13. Use that house rule, please. If you have Alchemists at home in your game and they're doing any sort of throwing, just give them that. Self-confessed cynic went crazy. Jorabite, thank you for renewing your sponsorship. Appreciate having you on board for the adventure, sir. Thank you so much for that. You are very, very awesome. Yeah, self-confessed cynic went hardcore, gave him Alchemist. That's crazy. Oh, we got Stephen Palmer coming in with their elite adventurer message. Items need a buff too, in my opinion, but martial proficiency would help. Agreed. I think items need a boost, and I think they need better proficiency. They get better, but they don't get that much better. My rating for the Alchemist is going to go from an F up to a D. Functionable, passing, still underwhelming. Items just need a lot of help, and the fact that your proficiency is drops off and doesn't scale anymore, that your key stat is stuck in int, and you've got these DCs, but you need dex, and you might need strength, and the mutagenist build is just a complete failure. There's a lot of feat taxes that it feels like you're priced into taking with the Alchemist just to stay competitive. Not a fan, but you do start to build up quite the infusion library. And if you're smart and you prepare well, you can have a pretty sizable impact on the game. And I at least appreciate that. I think the Alchemist got stronger. I expect that in the higher levels, we'll see them get stronger yet. By the end of the game, you're sitting on something like, 25 or something. Infusions, or 26 infusions per day. That's a lot of infusions. That's a lot of consumables to make, even if they are pretty underwhelming. So, Damian Williams with the super chat. Kai Urgin. Because we're Pathfinder 2, and we've got to be very 18th, 19th century Victorian England. And we can't just call something, something normal. We have to call it a Kyurgin because we're edgy and weird and we're into Thethosopy, whatever the hell that thing is that Eric Mona is really into. Anyways, Kyurgin is just a trap after the errata buff. I don't exactly know what the errata buff is, but I do recall people saying that it basically doesn't work and doesn't function. All right, let's see what this chat is saying. Okay. Chat being overly generous. Well, we got a lot of places here in the chat. So 24% of you said still F. 35% of you said D, and 39% of you said C. So pretty close. Split between D and C. I'll say this. I'm going to keep it at D, folks. Again, we had a good chunk of you that believed it was D, and that is where my take is. If we were doing pluses, and we're not, I would say that the Alchemist is probably... It could be a D+. They really are starting to get a lot of infusions. They are getting enough stuff to coming online, except for bombs. The bombs just fall off the trap. But if I miss, I could do a point of damage and trigger a weakness. Please, just go get some therapy and feel better about yourself. I didn't mean to say that, but people will just apologize for these horrible classes. It's okay to say that the class needs work. It's okay to say that Paizo didn't get it right. It's fine. Oh, Austin is in there $5 just to slay Donnie. And Donnie is down. So thank you, Austin, for that death blow. We appreciate you. You are very strong.
I am strong. Strong. Strong.
Just to be clear, Nightish, F is unplayable and S is OP, please nerf. Again, Nightish, I know you came in here late. Just want to reiterate, I said I believe that a character class that just had proficiencies, martial weapon proficiencies, armor proficiencies, save proficiencies, perception proficiencies, and no feats and no features. You are literally just a guy with an attack bonus and an armor class and a sword and some stats. I think your character, not only, obviously your character would function in Pathfinder 2, I actually think you would function okay. You'd be like, I wonder how long someone could show up at a Pathfinder 2 session. Just try this. If you've got a really open-minded group, try this. Show up to a Pathfinder 2 session, and all I want you to do is, for a fight or 2 fights or maybe a whole session, don't use any features or feats. Just be like, I'm gonna stride and I'm gonna strike and I'm gonna strike. You know, don't rage if you're a barbarian, or I don't know, don't use your hunt prey or something like that. Just stride, strike, you know, be like, oh, I stride, I strike, I aid you, you know. You can still use your skill proficiencies, just don't use any class feats, don't use any class features. And I honestly wonder, especially if you're in a big group where there's a lot of stuff happening, people aren't like super focused, super min-max, super car op. I don't know that most groups would notice. And you'd be like, guys, I have played the entire session without using a single class feature or a single class feat. And everyone would be like, oh, wow, I had no idea. Wow. Okay. So no class is unplayable because by definition, that class, which I just described to you, as Ruinsmith says, it's the Eidolon without the summoner. That class works. So obviously classes that get features on top of that. Yes. So it is relative to the other classes, Nightish. I think that if you assume that the class mechanical power level was supposed to be here, which is like a CB range, S's suggest that they gave the class too much mechanical strength, and F's suggest that they did not give it enough for me to even consider it to be passing design standards. Okay, what's next? What do we got next? The Barbarian. All right, what did we have Barbarian at last time, folks? We had the Barbarian last time at... The Barbarian was at B. A melee striker with a little bit of an action hit in the form of a rage. But other than that, kind of a mono-dimensional class. Can't be too mad at it. So we've got a Barbarian at, was B last time. How do we feel about it now? Is the Barbarian A? Is the Barbarian B? Is the Barbarian C? All right. Here are my thoughts on the Barbarian. Now, I had the honor and privilege of playing with a giant instinct barbarian, but I think that the damage bonus that you get for being a barbarian is not worth the penalty that you pay in forms of the action economy hit and in terms of the armor class penalty that you take. The giant instinct pays an additional point of armor class on top of that. I think that the class is strong, but ultimately fairly generic. Does that mean it's a good class? No. Does that mean it's a bad class? No. I think it just means the class functions. The class works. Now, I can tell you that between those of us who were kind of originally thinking about this rating, there was a debate between B and C. Honestly, it's not an A. The Barbarian did not get stronger. So YG said it's really easy for a party to make up for the Barbarian's -1 AC. That is true, YG. But when we're evaluating this, I'm not saying that we should evaluate these classes in a vacuum. We should not. But at the same time, what we do need to do is ask ourselves mechanically, is the Barbarian getting enough features and abilities at a certain cost to be better than our baseline of C. Remember, a C means that the class is average. It performs, it does its thing, and it's not doing it particularly better or worse than anyone else. The Barbarian, in my opinion, has a certain amount. Now, the fighter lacks versatility, but it makes up for it with incredible amount of accuracy. And because of the increase in accuracy and the weapon specialization and the effects of critical hits, in my opinion, the fighters, in many instances, can even out-damage the Barbarians. And so, while I think that the Barbarian still functions, it's hard for me to say that it is better than baseline. But it's very close. It's very close. And in this situation, I'm ultimately going to go with what I think the chat says. So the thing about let's talk about DR at level 9. Problem with DR at level 9 is DR at level 9 is a lot like shield block, okay? Because if you are playing a campaign where you're fighting lower level monsters, which do only a handful of points of damage, 8 damage, 9 damage, then a character with shield block or the damage reduction from the Barbarian is going to feel really, really cool at this level. Let's say you're level, 9 or 10, and you've got this 3 resistance or 4 resistance. That's going to feel really cool. You're going to be, you're going to be getting hit, and it's going to be like, oh, you take 8 damage. Nope, I only take 3. You take 8 damage. Nope, I only take 3. It's going to feel really, really awesome. But when you get hit for I don't know, most monsters that you're fighting are not going to be lower level than you. And by the way, the lower level monsters, because of the math in Pathfinder 2, are also much more likely to miss you, even with your lower armor class. But if you're going to be taking 35 damage or 45 damage, and you go, 41, it doesn't make as big of a difference. That small amount of damage matters a lot more, or the small amount of damage reduction matters a lot more if you're getting hit a lot for little, to kind of be getting nickeled and dimed. But it's kind of hard to get nickeled and dimed in Pathfinder 2, because the things that would nickel and dime you are lower level than you, and that just means they miss all the time. So, in my experience, I think the Barbarian damage reduction in Pathfinder 2 is bad. Now, Bob is in the chat. Bob, what do you think about the Barbarian damage reduction in Pathfinder 2? So Bob will sort of decide. Bob said he voted A, but right. Not only do monsters hit like a truck, they also have a built-in aimbot. I agree with that. Bob says the Barbarian damage reduction is weak sauce. And Austin, I agree with Austin. My experience, the big tough Barbarian is always the one to go down first. In my experience, armor class is more important than hit points or, it's more important than hit points or damage reduction at staying alive. Nin says I voted A2. I think they get a lot from aid. Nin, I agree with you. Aid is really important. Aid is really great on the Barbarian. In fact, it's amazing on the Barbarian. But we cannot talk about tactics in this context. We have to evaluate these classes on the basis of what the class provides into its core shell. Every class has a certain number of features which are worth a certain amount of value, and we have to evaluate it in the context of playing Pathfinder 2. I agree. The nature of good strategy and tactics is minimizing your weaknesses or raising the floor, as well as maximizing your advantages, and that's raising the ceiling of your overall performance. But we cannot assume these things when we think about these classes. So Barbarian either needs to decrease the AC penalty or get bigger damage reduction. And Brothlith, I think they should have a bigger damage reduction. In my mind, mechanically, I like the idea of a character who gets hit a lot but takes less damage. That to me is far more interesting. It's sort of like the opposite of the champion, right? I like the idea of that. So I think that's, really, really, like a tank, right? Like a barbarian just getting hit left and right, but just shrugs through it. Maybe damage reduction would give you some sort of inbuilt critical hit resistance, like fortification does. I just think, they need to take and absorb more damage. And then what I think Strat is saying is also agree. Which is, I don't think they do enough damage. I really don't think they do enough damage. Also, Brovleth, we are currently playing in a 5th edition Friday night campaign. It's our private game. It's not really 5th edition because it's really, really hacked and house ruled to all hell. But Bob is playing a Barbarian, and that is too. And the Barbarian Rage in 5th edition is just, you take half damage from everything. It's nuts. It's probably too good, but it's 5th edition, so nothing's really balanced. I'm not saying that you should have that in Pathfinder 2nd edition, but I do think that the path-wise, I just think that the way that you take a lot of damage in Pathfinder 2 is from critical hits, and the Barbarian is a critical hit soaking machine because of their lowered armor class, and generally speaking, they don't have as competitive of an AC as a full plate class, so they're just going to get crit a lot. And when you're getting crit by an on level or level +1 or level +2 monster, you're going to be getting hit for something like 50 to 60% of your hit points. So taking off 3 or 4 points of damage from that is just not impressive. And in fact, actually, as I'm talking about this more and more, I'm giving it a C. So let me see what everybody said. Only 20% of you said C. 57% of you said B. I'm sorry. I just think that the damage reduction you get in the mid tiers and the increase to your rage just do not make up the difference. Neovi says 5e Barbarian strong. Pathfinder 2nd edition, C tier. Strat says B is way too high of a rating for the Barbarian. Only 20% of us said C, but we're right. Listen, honestly, I expect chat to be far more generous than I would ever be. I mean, that's kind of my thing, right? Derek's an asshole, according to Reddit. Yeah, Reddit, I'm talking to you. You said I was an asshole. Well, okay, one of you did. But Derek goes to S. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, sorry. Barbarian, the deal with the Barbarian is you're talking about a class that should be hitting for a ton of damage and just soaking up a ton of damage, right? But like, you get it, but it's just not competitive enough. YG says Juggernaut should be not underestimated. It is the most common save the party makes from enemies at this level. Juggernaut's good. Master Fort save is great. The upgrade is awesome. But to be clear, in these level ranges, there's also people getting master level will saves. I ultimately think that the Barbarian has okay saves, but I really don't think that they are. I don't think it's enough. I think everyone's got something that they do, really well, and Barbarians are not the only class to get Juggernaut. So, Awesome says the crit resistance thing would be cool. Something like you still have the reduced armor class, but you just need more than +10 to get hit. Yeah, I don't know, something, or it could work like fortification. I just love the idea that the Barbarian should be getting hit a lot and then taking almost no damage. And that just doesn't, I've seen the Barbarian play out several times in Pathfinder 2, and that's just never the way that it plays out. And it's the way I want it to play out. And again, I just don't think that the relatively small amount of bonus damage you get from rage makes the Barbarian feel like they're really hitting all that much harder than some of these other classes. And that's not even just a bonus. You're paying for that rage with an armor class penalty. So you had to give something up just to get that damage bonus. Oh, it's like, I'm not gaining other things. I'm not gaining spells or focus spells, or shouldn't I just get the damage bonus or something? Or if I am going to get an AC penalty, shouldn't that damage bonus be insane? I agree with Anthony. If the Barbarian has such a low AC and pathetic damage reduction, it should be doing crazy damage and fighter hit rate. I don't know. I don't know if it should have the fighter hit rate, but Yeah, okay, yeah. Anthony says maybe not the fighter hit rate, but definitely the damage bonus. I'm in a complete agreement. Okay. Next up, we got the champion. Champion was a B tier. What do we got it for this time around? All right, people, we're putting it in chat. Got to hear what you guys have to say about this one. Let me put it in here. We got the champion coming in next. Champion. All right, so last time it was B tier. So the question is it A? Is it B? Is it C? Ask the community. Here we go. All right. Here's my problem with the champion. Let me break it out for you. Champion has a high armor class. They get expert proficiency early. Anthony, this is where you're wrong. Anthony is wrong, everybody. Why is Anthony wrong? Here's why. Let me explain to you a problem. Let me explain to you the problem. Okay. This game was actually written by Mike Merles. This is a variant 3rd edition game. Came out, 20 years ago or something crazy like that. Probably not. Maybe like 15 or 16 years ago. In this game, there were classes. And when the classes did their thing, they gained a pool of tokens. Almost like combo points for a rogue if you're playing WoW, but it's like a focus pool. The classes would gain certain things. So like when the Barbarian would get hit or do damage, they would gain, these points that they could use to cash things in. Does that make sense? There was a class in this book, and it was called the Armiger. Okay? The Armiger was the class. And the Armiger's shtick was they were very heavily armored. Right? Sounds really awesome. And the way that the Armiger worked was when you attacked them, okay, and you missed them because of their high armor class, they would gain this pool of Armiger points. And then they could spend those Armiger points to do awesome, cool, powerful things. And being an Armiger, they had the best armor class in the game with really cool armor bonuses and really cool shield bonuses. Very awesome, right? Guess what? Horrible. You know why? Because if you have a class which has a really, really, really high AC and doesn't really do anything else, you just don't attack them. Okay? You just don't attack them. So when you have the champion out there with their shield and shield block and shield divine ally, and they're in full plate and it's +1 full plate, resilient, and they're expert now in their heavy armor proficiency, and their AC with their shield raised is like 4 or 5 points higher than everybody, you just don't attack them. You just say, I don't care about you. I'm going to ignore you and just walk around you. It doesn't matter. What are you going to do? Hit me for 2d8 plus 3 damage? It just doesn't matter. Okay? Now, the game does try to make the champion gain things like shield reaction, and they get like the ability to use their shield on allies. Vortex Turtle is talking about there right now. But this has the other big problem. The damn range. All that shield shit only works if you're next to this slow, boring champion. What if you go anywhere else? And we talked about this before. We're in the mid tiers here now, people. We're gonna be fighting large creatures. We're gonna be fighting huge creatures. And if you're playing in my game, we're not playing in a 15-foot by 15-foot room. Okay, we are playing in some sort of reasonable sized thing that can actually hold the large and huge monsters that we're playing with. If my rogue is flanking a huge creature with my champion ally, and I get hit because the monster says, well, I have 2 options. I could attack the rogue, who is doing a tremendous amount of damage to me and whose armor class is pretty much boilerplate normal, or I could attack this champion who has a really high AC with their shield raised and has shield block, but is doing almost no damage because they have no damage bonuses to it. Their strength, there's no special bonus to damage because of sneak attack or rage. It's just 2d8 from the striking rune plus their strength. Boring. The monster goes, I'm gonna attack the rogue. And the champion goes, oh wait, you're 15 foot by 15 foot. I can't even shield this rogue ally of mine with my champion's reaction, whether it's a paladin or a redeemer or a liberator, because you're too far away. The range of reactions needs to scale. It doesn't scale. They don't even give you the choice of a feat tax. Like, oh, take this feat at level 8 from a paladin, and the 15-foot range goes to 30 foot, or goes to, I don't know, 45 foot, or something like that. It's just boring. It's like, they can get 20-foot range with the feat. That is news to me. If we're talking about the step one, I don't think that works. The range reprisal, I don't think that works, but maybe 20 feet with a feat. You get an extra 5 feet. Even then, it's pathetically small. The champion doesn't function, in my opinion, as well as it should, because there's no reason. This guy doesn't do a lot of damage. You don't care about his attack of opportunity because it's not going to be particularly damaging. The reaction is great. I completely agree with that. But having this awesome shield, if no one attacks you and none of your allies are within range, then it doesn't matter. And it's very easy for the monsters to play around that. And just not attack you. And just go, you don't do enough damage. Sorry, I'm going to go attack somebody else. Now, interesting note to that, by the way. Interesting note to that. In Rise of the Runelords, we had someone play a paladin. Nick played Escanor, a paladin. And Nick picked up Litany Against Wrath. And I completely changed and house ruled that spell completely. If you're familiar with Litany Against Wrath, and I see people in the chat are talking about 4th edition. And so I changed Litany Against Wrath in a way that was actually very reminiscent of 4th edition. How did I change Litany Against Wrath? Well, what I did to Litany, if you read Litany Against Wrath, it's a 1-action spell. You cast it on an enemy, and if the enemy fails or succeeds at their will save, then when the next turn, if they make an attack against an ally, against someone, and they hit, okay, then they take some damage from Litany Against Wrath automatically. Good damage, I think. Okay. Here's the problem with that spell. That spell is supposed to what? Discourage the monster from attacking anyone or at all, to punish it for being wrathful. But realistically, if your character had Litany Against Wrath cast on you, and you were a damage dealing class like a barbarian or a fighter, would you say, I don't want to take 5d6 damage. I'll just pass. No, you're still going to attack anyways. But since I'm going to be attacking anyways, why wouldn't I just go attack the target that's actually a problem for me, like the rogue or the monk or the ranger or whatever is dealing damage to me? I'm still not going to go attack the champion because his armor class is really high and he doesn't do a lot of damage, and I'm going to be taking the damage no matter what, so I'll just go attack the rogue. What I did is I changed Litany Against Wrath to Litany of Protection, and the way that my Litany of Protection worked was, if the monster even attempted an attack roll against an ally of the champion's, not just hit, just even tried, they automatically took the 46 or the 5d6 or the 66 good damage. But if they made an attack roll against the champion who cast the litany, they didn't take any damage. So now that monster or that GM or that player maybe has a choice. Yeah, I can go after the rogue, the real juicy target, and just automatically take 6d6. If I make 2 attacks against that rogue, I'm going to be taking 12d6 damage automatically, whether I hit or miss. That's a lot. Or I could go attack the champion. And yeah, the champion has a really high armor class, but at least this way I'm not getting just auto punished with 12d6. Okay, I'm going to go attack the champion. It's worth it to avoid having to take the auto damage. And so what the spell ended up doing was creating an incentive for the monsters to attack the champion, which they otherwise would never do. And that is one of the changes that I made to the champion. So, yeah. So, let's take a look here with the chat. 43% of you say B, but 38% of you say C, and 20% of you, 1 in 5, say A. I think that I think ultimately that the champion, because of the problems with scale and size, ultimately I think that it is a C class.
$3 despite the issues. In real play we found that the frequent DR provided by the reaction, and the general usefulness of a hard target that can lay on hands and battle medicine made every champion I've played with quite effective. B for me.
So I'm going to agree with, listen, there's nothing wrong or nothing shameful about C. If you went and designed your own RPG, and I sat around and I went through it and I graded all the classes that you make, and I ended up giving you a bunch of C's and a bunch of B's, you should pat yourself on the back. You did a great job. It means that you understood your design principles and you made classes that functioned adequately and had enough compelling options to function within their space. I think B's are probably, we want to be more excited about these classes than just be like, yeah, it works, it's okay. We do want to be a little bit excited. And so I do think that some of the C classes are totally fine and totally fair. I have also seen the champion's reaction be pretty powerful. In fact, at the end of our Dark of Winter campaign, my fighter had a free archetype, a couple free archetypes in champion. The sorcerer had a couple levels of free archetype in champion. We both had champion reactions, and we really, really, really try to function around that. Anthony says, wait, if the champion doesn't really function as a defender, shouldn't it be a D? Anthony, champion's reaction is still very good. Lay on hands still functions. And if you build your champion towards damage, which I think is a better way to build your champion, I think going the shield route with your champion is bad. In fact, Escanor died before he got a chance to do it. But I actually think the better option for a champion, if you really want to play a champion, is to get that full plate armor. You get expert armor proficiency really early. You don't go for a two-handed weapon. You don't go for a shield. You go open hand. And you focus on grabbing and grappling. Because if a champion goes up and bases up a creature and lands an immobilize on that creature, and the rest of the party can take advantage of that to move away, that monster is going to have no option but to either try to break free from the champion using escape actions, which is going to increase its multiple attack penalty, not to mention chew up a bunch of actions, or they will attack the champion, and that's what you want them to do. So that to me is actually, I think, how you want to build a champion. But the fact of the matter is, when we think about playing a paladin or we think about playing a champion, we are envisioning this sword and board, or this, person with a great two-handed sword. The idea of a paladin running around with like a long sword or a rapier and just wrestling people, it clashes a little mechanically with what the class is kind of trying to push you to do. What about evil champions? Most people don't play evil champions, Brovlith, so it doesn't really particularly matter. So I don't think it really particularly matters, but of the one champ, also they're uncommon, I think. And even then, I don't think that they're particularly compelling, but Brovlith, I'll be quite honest with you, I do not know anything about evil champions, so I do not feel compelled. I do not feel prepared or adequately knowledgeable to give you a good answer for that. So, to be fair, they might be amazeballs. I do not know. Sorry, Brovlith. Also, Brovlith, if you want me to, I'm sorry if I missed your question, but we got a lot of stuff going on, buddy. You got a tip. Let's see here. The Runesmith says, I think that even ignoring the reaction, just being a hard target, the strength of the class is still so strong because of the same reason the fighter's defense is so high. That's because of soft fudging. The reason why I think a lot of people have fun with their champions is because their GM soft fudges. What does that mean? It means the champion goes, you will not defend, I will defend my friends. I'm going to step forward and raise my shield. And then the wizard and the rogue and the cleric or whatever are 10 feet behind the champion. So the GM's turn goes. They've got 3 or 4 monsters, and they go, oh, they surround the champion and begin attacking him. Oh my God, your AC is so high. They miss. One manages to get an attack through, and then everyone goes, wow, this champion is amazing. Look at that, dude. You just soaked 8 attacks. That was crazy. Champions are legit. I feel like such a defender. But that's kind of a soft fudge. Those monsters would just go past the champion and just kill all those people in the back. There's no reason for them not to. Attacking the champion is kind of stupid. They should just go wreck face on everybody that's behind them. So, you know. Also, Catholic makes a really interesting point, which I always talk about this before, which is aligning player incentives, okay, with mechanical motivations. Catholic really makes an interesting point, which is this. Think about a champion. You have this really cool reaction. Maybe you even put a lot of feats into it. So you really like your reaction. But that you only get to use your reaction when your friends are being attacked. And so even though your goal is to defend your friends, there's also a part of you that kind of wants them to be attacked so that you also can use your cool ability. And it makes you kind of like crosses wires a little bit because you just want to, you know. That's a pretty hefty assumption. Also, not every monster is smart. This excuse is, I think, a bad one. Most creatures with 8 or higher intelligence are certainly capable of functioning. An unintelligent monster like a zombie would probably fall for that. But the vast majority of creatures, including animals, animals are very aware of what, you know, that there's a reason why, you know, predator animals like wolves and mountain lions attack the old and the young and the weak and the sick. They can figure that out. The champion with its clad armor looks like a damn rhinoceros to even an animal, and they're just going to ignore them. So, anyways, I think the champion is a C, and I agree with that. So, anyways, I do agree with what Catholic said. And Land Hands is fine. I mean, there's a bunch of healing focus spells in the game, though. Some of them are like fast healing X for 3 rounds or 4 rounds, and they actually end up healing a little bit more than Land Hands, but Land Hands is good. I'm not going to say it's not. Again, the class gets a C. It's fine. It's just not super great. And ultimately, I think that there are mechanical flaws that make it so that the champion can't actually function as a champion. Like, if Derek was divine, I don't know exactly what every pixel accounts is talking about here, but like, if I was playing a champion, or if I was designing a champion, the way I would design a champion is, and I'm making this up entirely, there's a spell. It's a cleric spell from the Sun domain. It's a focus spell. It's called Luminescent Reservoir. Look it up. Luminescent Reservoir is a spell that they cast it, and each round, the Luminescent Reservoir fills up with more and more power, which is represented by a number. You know, it starts at 4, and then it goes to 8, and then it goes to 12, and then it goes to 16. And as you get higher level, it like starts at 8, and then goes to 16, and then it goes to 24, and then it goes to 32. And it builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up. And then the cleric can either, and while that aura is in effect, if an undead attacks them, they take half as much damage from the aura. And then when it builds up, when eventually the cleric can release it as a big heal or a big damage against undead. The way I would design a champion is that a champion starts with some sort of growing magical aura. And you could put in that classic, you know, like if you ever read the Summoner text where it talks about how the Summoner has a glowing sigil and the Eidolon has a glowing sigil, and it can't be hidden, and it shows through clothes. And even if a creature is unintelligent, it understands that these two creatures are intrinsically tied, right? This aura of the Paladin would make it so that everybody understands that this creature is getting more powerful. And basically, this aura, this power, the champion would just be like, you get plus 2 bonus damage, then plus 4 bonus damage, then plus 6 bonus damage, then plus 8 bonus damage, or maybe, and at higher levels, it's like plus 5 bonus damage, plus 10 bonus damage, plus 15 bonus damage, to like every strike, or to some massive smite. But when the champion gets attacked, that whittles down that pool of energy, right? And so if you leave the champion alone and you don't attack it, the champion feels kind of sad because they're like, oh, look, I have all this heavy armor. That's what I wanted to do. But then they get the consolation prize of this massive glowing aura, and they get to smash through people as well. But if they do get attacked, okay, cool. They don't get their massive smite aura, but at least that way they are absorbing attacks and being functional as a defender for the group. So, Cedric says you can make a whole class based on that aura mechanic. I agree, and I think I will someday. I'd love to do that class for Battlecry. By the way, Battlecry is our monthly e-zine. We're coming out with issue 2. Actually, I think it's going to come out tonight for our patrons. But one of the things that we want to do with our Battlecry is create more mechanical releases for people to play with and try with, play and try, and kind of, something that isn't just a live stream, but actually physical material content, homebrew stuff that you could come in. So one of the things I'd love to do with that, now that I have that platform, is to actually try to, create some variant classes or some new classes, or rewrite every class in Pathfinder 2, etc. Okay. What's next? The Druid. So I had Druid at C last time. So we had Druid at C. And let's take a look what we got here. We got Druid at C. I think we can all agree that the Druid did not get worse. So do you think the Druid is still at C, or do you think the Druid is up to a B? I'll tell you what I think. The Druid got a C. Primal spell list is very strong. There are some orders of the Druid, which I think are kind of weak. Flame, Wild. I know people like to do the battle shifting. I just don't think it works particularly well in Pathfinder 2. Sorry. But Animal is very strong. Storm is very strong. Stone is very strong. Primal is a very, very, very powerful list. The Druid got knocked because being low level means she didn't have a lot of spells. Well, you're in your mid levels now. You've got Fireball. You've got Cone of Cold. You've got some really good spells. You got a lot of them. And better yet, you are a Druid, which, like the cleric, is a prepared caster, but doesn't have a book. And that means you get access to your entire primal spell list. I think the Druid is a solid B. I think the Druid actually gets an upgrade. More spell slots means they're able to really take advantage of all these spells. They're not just relying on shitty cantrips. Some of the orders can be pretty powerful. The Druid feats, I will admit, are a little underwhelming. But if you have a good order and you're building that up with, let's say, your Animal Companion or certain key focus spells of the Druid, there's a couple focus spells of the Druid that are actually pretty powerful. I think you can have fun. And the Primal list is a good balance. It's a good balance of offense and defense and support. Unlike the divine list, Druids get heal, so that alone is a good reason to give them some credit. And now you have enough spell slots that you can actually afford to take them along with some fireballs. And I really like that. I think that's really cool. The Druid spell list, the Primal spell list, I think is particularly strong in Pathfinder 2nd Edition from what we would traditionally consider, the Druid spell list. Hey, we got a super chat. Lay out why we didn't end up at an A for chat. Let's see here. A for so much versatility. Still a caster, more slots. B. A rank or unsub. Wow. Druids better than lumberjacks. Love it. Thank you, Austin. So Austin is part of our Northern Reaches mega campaign, which, by the way, signups end October 15th. So you just got 2 weeks left to get into season 1. Season 2 isn't going to start until the very beginning of 2023. Members of season 1 get early access to season 2 when signups start. So if you're interested in joining our Northern Reaches game before it ends up, but there's a big competition between the druidic powers and the Fae who inhabit the nearby Jagged Pine Forest. And you guessed it, a guild of lumberjacks, which is not a GM creation, by the way. The players created it to take down the forest to help build and grow the city. And so Austin is showing his support for the druids over the lumberjacks. Okay, so the reason for the reason for B for the druid is I just don't think they're as good as the bard. I think the occult spell list is a little better. I think the focus spells and class abilities and features and extra skills that the bard gets are stronger than the druid's options. And Corey said it very succinctly. Composition cantrips and composition focus spells, I think, are better than the druid's options. I think occult is a little bit better. And that is enough for me to say that they are at the B tier. I'm not suggesting that they might not be A tier by the end of the game, but ultimately, I think that, and also, again, we talked about this before, I think they're a really great prepared caster because they get access to an entire list and it's primal when they are doing their preparation, but they're just preparation. Oh, one other thing about the druid that I think is important to talk about. Sorcerers get up to 4 spells slots per level. The wizards get 3 spell slots per level, but they get +1 virtually spell slot per level because they have drain bonded item. And that means that they basically have 4 spell slots per level, just like the sorcerer. The cleric only gets 3 spell spots per level, but they might get 4 or 5 or 6 bonus spells. Yes, they're all heal, but let's be honest, you're a cleric, you're going to be casting heal to some capacity. And they get 5 or 6 bonus spells because of divine font. So by the end of the game at level 20, the sorcerer has 10 extra spell slots. The wizard has 10 extra spell slots. The cleric might have like 5 or 6 extra spell slots, depending on what you get your charisma to. But the druid does not get that. The druid doesn't get something that gives them those extra spell slots. And so they are going to be behind somewhere in the neighborhood of 25% less spells than either a wizard or a sorcerer. And I think that that's fine. Wizards usually have more spells than sorcerer. Only one wizard subclass does not. So there you go. Ruinsmith hit pointing out that wizards can even have more than that. So again, druids. Druids get decent fits and medium armor as a baseline. That is irrelevant at this stage of the game, Catholic, because we are in the mid tier. And by the mid tier of the game, your most of your cloth casters will have started the game, will have either taken the general proficiency, light armor proficiency, so that they can have a AC of 5 between their dex and their item bonus, or they'll just have a 20 dexterity and they'll be able to have 5 AC from their dex. And medium armor is plus your dex is going to give you 5 AC anyways, so it's all just 5 AC. It all just comes out in the wash. It really only matters at low levels. By the time you get to the mid levels, everyone's just 5. Everyone just has 5 AC, unless you are a full plate wearer, heavy armor, and you have 6. So, there you go. All right. 81% of you said B. No one said C, and I agree, but not A. Again, for those reasons I mentioned. Also, like I said, they don't get those bonus spells like the wizard and the sorcerer, and even the cleric do. So, cleric has the divine list though, so they kind of balances out in the wash. All right, wow, this is taking a lot longer than I expected. I'm sorry, folks. Maybe you let me know. Should I speed it up? You guys are being generous. People are tipping. Everybody's having a fun time. You all are being really, really responsive, polite, and generous. So let me know. Let me know if you want me to speed it up or if we can just kind of keep going. All right. Gunslinger is our next class. Gunslinger was a B tier. And I'm not going to make this one very dramatic. I think it stays B tier. I think having, master and then legendary proficiency makes it a little bit better of an option. Numbers matter in this game. That's just the way it goes. That being said, the Gunslinger has a lot of its feats and abilities and are just kind of taxes or gimmicks to get around the fact that reload really sucks. And whether they're using a crossbow or a gun, the Gunslinger is going to have to rely on this. And all these things that you're doing just are really just to sort of be it so that you just don't completely suck. You're not actually getting better. The feats and the features just allow you to play at a somewhat reasonable rate of play. So again, our Gunslinger was a C last time, or I'm sorry, it was a B last time, and I honestly think it's still a B this time. Super chat from Vin, who said, voting doubled the runtime. Yeah, I'm sorry. Not really. I mean, I'm still just talking about it. I mean, vote quicker. I won't leave the poll up as long, but in my opinion, Gunslinger goes down to C. Guns suck. Why has no one done a dedication tier list? Oh gosh, PDX. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, archetypes are an important part of the game. I mean, the fact of the matter is, between free archetypes and the fact that a lot of people just use archetypes, you know, in general in their games, I agree with you. I think that could be a useful thing. The fact is, there are some archetypes that are busted. Beastmaster, I'm looking at you, right? What's another one that's busted? I can never remember. A champion, probably, honestly, is probably busted too. Champion dedication. Yeah, dedication tier list would be awesome. I actually agree with that. All right. Well, folks, I'm not gonna hang out forever here. 26% of you said A, 43% said B, 30% say C. Yeah, I think we're gonna stay at B on this one. Again, I agree with Ragged Wolfbane here. Good class, mix of support and damage dealer, which goes against what a lot of players think of the class. Well, I think a lot of people do think it is a damage dealer. It's fine. And again, like I said, I think it gets a little bit of a bump. I think it's like a C class, but I think it gets that little bit of bump because I got to respect the +2. I got to respect the legendary, right? PDOX, we're trying to be unbiased here. We're not trying to go for style. We are rating them strictly on the mechanical power of the class relative to this sort of Pathfinder 2 baseline class of, you know, in terms of, do the mechanics support the ability to function inside of the game? Again, fun, because fun is very subjective. Style is very subjective. I'll be honest with you, PDOX, I think gunslingers are stupid. I don't like guns in my game, and I definitely don't like the gunslinger type of guns in my game. I don't want the anti-hero, you know, Roland, Dark Tower, Drifter. I don't like that. That's not my thing. Anyways, that's my take. Anyways, +2 points for unrivaled style. Thank you, Austin, for that. Another super chat. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for I know the tip, our tip meter only goes up with Stream Elements tips, but I do want to say I really do appreciate all the super chats. I know we don't have like a bar for them, but they are appreciated and definitely keeping me going here. So yeah, Gunslinger good, legendary at 13. It is good. All right, we got the Inventor. And the Inventor was a D before. And I think the Inventor might be a D again. Again, I don't think the Inventor is a bad class. I think that the Inventor suffers mostly because of multiple attribute dependency problems. I think it stays at D. The Inventor does not have, it's still making checks which scale with its level to use its overdrive. So it's not like the overdrive gets easier. Overdrive is just kind of a bad rage. I don't know how to tell you that. It's just a bad rage. They get a bunch of feats which give you a bunch of, wazoos and, whiz bangs, but a lot of times scrolls and the like can just, do something else. Or do something very similar, and you don't have to take a whole class dedicated to it. And ultimately, Austin, I agree with you. If the Inventor weren't so mad, it would be amazing. If there was ever a class that should have said, you can use your intelligence bonus to strike in melee, or you can use your intelligence bonus to strike and do damage, that it would be the Inventor, right? Because you're attacking with your geared, pistoned, super steam pressured maul driver. I think that would work. And because they are behind the curve mechanically, and because they just don't bring that mechanical power and thunder. They've got a lot of style, but we can't judge on that because some people might hate that style. They've got a lot of interesting little tidbits and wonk bangs, but they have this random, sometimes they don't work, and sometimes it blows up in your face, and having that kind of randomness is not what you want when you're in a extreme encounter or something like that. The fact, again, that overdrive can fail, rage is bad enough because you have to pay an action just to be able to do it. But imagine if you could rage and there was a chance that you wouldn't rage. Like, that's just horrible. So Inventor is going to stay at D, and it looks like most people agreed. Yeah, 68% of you said Inventor stays at D. So good to know. Thank you for that. All right, next up is Investigator. Now, Investigator was D last time. This background music is tripping me out. I bet you it's Sarah the Ill. Yep. There is someone in this Epidemic Sound. She's an artist. Her name is Sarah the Illstrumentalist. And I wish I could. I might have to go through this and manually make a playlist and just delete all of her songs. I hate them. I actually like this playlist. Epidemic Sound is great. Epidemic Sound, you should sponsor me. But her songs are just terrible. Okay, sorry. All right, so we've got the Investigator. It was a D last time. Does it make the cut? Does it get upgraded? My take on it is nope. PDOX says F rank. I don't think they got worse. I don't think they got worse. Investigator should have been a C last time and is definitely C now. Boo this man. Yeah, we're not doing that. D is where it belongs, but Devise a Stratagem is amazing and should have been something for all int classes. Investigator just gets just too many options, which, to be fair, could matter a lot in your campaign. But in most Pathfinder 2 campaigns, I just don't think that there is a real... I just don't think that there is really an option for it. I think a lot of the abilities just do not work as well as people want them to in their campaign, and I just don't think the class has done enough. It hasn't gained enough mechanical advantage in the mid tiers to really be that good. So again, I think the class plays, and I do think that they have out of combat utility, but I think the game is a lot of it is combat. I think Devise a Stratagem is very action intensive, and I just think that you need to really know what your campaign is going into. If your campaign is going to get a lot of use out of all of the various elements of the Investigator, I think you can have an effective time with it. But I think a lot of what people want the Investigator to do, you could probably just do with a rogue and be a lot more effective in combat. So 54% of you said C, 46% of you said D, and it's pretty close, but I am going to go with D. I'm going to keep it at D. I totally respect that you love the class. Devise a Stratagem is normally free. Is it normally free? That's like saying Hunt Prey is normally free, because you can hunt your prey before you even encounter it in combat, because you can track it and then start the fight with it hunted. But that's probably not how like 99% of Hunt Prey is used in the game of Pathfinder 2. All right, Magus is up next. Magus was a C last time. And this time around, got some decisions to make. All right, Magus poll going up. I'm actually gonna have to put in 3 here. Did Magus go up or down, or did it stay the same? Is it a B? Is it a C? Or is it a D? Now, here are my thoughts on the Magus. In the mid tiers, I think the Magus gets 4 spell slots. That's what I think. I think that you're going to be casting focus spells a lot, which suck. I think Arcane Cascade sucks. I think the Magus stances are a joke. I think the Magus is a one-shot pony that does one thing and one thing well, and then reloading your spell strike is very, very, very time-consuming. That is what the Magus does. And you get 4 spell slots per day, and you're otherwise just going to be using a lot of cantrips. And you're going to basically be adding your cantrip damage to your strike, and you're going to be trying to stack through as many shenanigans as you can. For most people, this means using free archetype to get access to a wizard or sorcerer, and then picking up as many true strike spells as you can. And basically they play the class by basically going around the class and doing a bunch of stuff that was never part of the class design elements. And then you get a bunch of true strikes, you sack aid, you have your spell strike, you attack with fortune, with the bonus, on a flank, you crit, you do a ton of damage, everybody cheers. That's the Magus play pattern. And it works. I don't think it's particularly strong, and I definitely don't think that it's supported. And, you know, I think that on its own, the Magus is just kind of fine. I don't think it's particularly strong. I don't think it's particularly weak. To me, the Magus is a C class. I think in some ways, it's like the Barbarian. You know, it's just going about it a different way. It's getting to I do a lot of damage, and here's how I do it. But instead of doing it every fight and every round, I do it like once a fight, or maybe twice a fight. I also agree with what Ragan just said. If you have to break your class, if you have to break the game to make your class decent, then there's probably something wrong. Yeah, I mean, of course, the class does get options and features both left. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I just think the Magus is probably just fine. I don't think it's particularly strong, but I don't think it's particularly weak either. I think the class just performs. I think the Magus really does what it says on the tin. I think if you look at the Magus and you see how many spells per day it gets, and you go, I'm probably going to be doing spell strikes with cantrips a lot, and maybe doing some other cool kind of gishy things once or twice. And that's kind of how it plays out. I do respect that they made the Magus have the ability, even though it's a caster, to have strength as a key stat. It's like by the time they got to spells and magic, they realized some of the problems inherent with multiple attribute dependency in MAD, and they really had to come up with this class just will not function if it's not strength-based. So at least it gets that. And again, that's why it's not a D. That's why it's a C. So I do think that is important. All right, well, let's see what the chat had to say about it. I'm curious. 45% of you said B, 52% said C, and only 3% said D. And I respect that rating. I'm going to give it a C, which is what the majority of you said. But I will say this. It's a C+. It's a C+. I think the Magus does what it does, and it does it well enough. The damage is something to consider, that the class is C+. If it makes you feel any better, maybe there's a world in which I give it B-. But, I think C+ is really where it is. I'm happy with putting it at C because we don't do pluses here. But, I think C is where it goes. So, Magus is a C. Okay. Next up, we got Monk. Monk was a B. Okay, guess what? I'm just leaving the Monk at B. We're not going to do anything elaborate with this. The Monk kind of is still doing in the mid tiers what it was doing in the low tiers. It's going to be flurrying, stunning when it can, It's going to get some defensive bonuses. Its saves are going to continue to be really, really good. It's going to gain some cool feats that'll let it, punch people harder and stronger, reduce its map, move quickly, teleport, whatever the key powers it's going to be able to do. It gets expert at 5. It gets master at 13. The monk just continues, I think, almost exactly to play the same way at mid-tier as you did at low tier. I will say the one thing that really stands out to me is that it is faster and quicker, and I think that speed becomes even more and more important at higher levels when the battlefields are larger, the monsters have more mobility themselves, and I think that the monk, it's possible it drops down to C by high level, but I think at this level, I think it still performs just the same and fine as it was at the B tier. And you're not as reliant on all those gimmickies. Yes, you have stances which can eat up an action, but I also think the monk is one of the classes that benefits the most from having haste be widely available. A lot of the classes like the Barbarian and the Magus really rely on that one single attack, and having that multiple attack penalty can really, really hurt them. And so having sometimes the haste isn't the most useful thing to them, but in my experience, I think the monk having haste is like a really, really, really powerful and cool thing, and really, really helps them out. So $2 from Self-Confessed Cynic, just for a reminder. GMs in the chat, please give Maguses 2 slots per level. Listen to this guy. He just wants OP Maguses with tons of spells. A Magus with 2 spots per level is probably too strong, by the way. A Magus with 2 spell slots per level is probably A tier, pushing S tier, actually. Probably it is S tier. But Vin only likes to play S tier classes, and in Vin Finder, that's how he goes. Brothless says, shame. Oh, good reason to join our Discord if you haven't done so already. Brothless says, shameless promotion here, but if you were kind of disappointed with the Magus, look out for a rework of the class I'm going to put on the Discord in a week or 2. So Brothless is hard at work. Maybe if you're interested in checking out their work, or maybe even having a conversation with them in one of our Pathfinder 2 forums on our Discord, you can talk to Brothless about it. Ping them about it. Make every class S. I mean, that there is a certain, that kind of doesn't make sense. If every class was an S, they'd be C. But I get what Vin is saying here, and I don't disagree. I kind of like it. All right. Next is the Oracle. The Oracle was an F. Guess what? The Oracle is now a D. They got more spells. Still think curses are weak. I think using your focus spells and then upgrading your curse is like, why am I... These spells aren't that good. Why do I have to pay a penalty to cast these mediocre spells? But Divine Access gives you the ability to access some additional spells, kind of like the Sorcerer, but not as good. Because they have to be cleric, but it can be from a domain that you have access to. So you have to build your Oracle really, really carefully. But they do end up getting a lot of spells, and, they're hampered. It's the Divine List, not a good one, but, it is what it is. They get more spells. I would not consider them to be unplayable now. I would just still consider them probably to be a subpar choice. Honestly, a Divine Sorcerer is going to be, probably way cooler and more effective than an Oracle 99% of the time. The Oracle focus spells at the very least should be better. I mean, maybe the normal focus spells can be fine, but the Oracle focus spells should definitely be better, right? Because you're paying a price. You're getting that curse going up, and I just, it's fine. I agree with Catholic. You play the Oracle for the flavor. That's not a way to balance the class mechanically. It's certainly not a way that we're going to judge the class mechanically, but they are right. Catholic is right. I don't think that changes the rating of a D, but if you dig that and that's what you want to play in your TTRPG, go for it. I just got done telling you that I think a class or a group of characters with no feats and features could play through most Pathfinder 2 games. Now, if your GM is throwing extreme plus encounters at you every other session, if they're throwing nothing but severes, 120 XP, 140 XP, 150 XP encounter after encounter after encounter, maybe you should reconsider the Oracle, because the class, I don't think, has enough mechanical strength to support that level of play. But if you're playing, and there also are some APs that are renowned for being harder than other APs, but if you're playing a mostly standard run-of-the-mill Pathfinder 2 type game where, you know, most fights are going to be moderates and severes and honestly not that hard, or if you're pretty sure that your GM is just fudging anyways and would never actually kill the party, be whatever you want. Taunt them, gain a bunch of curse effects, then at the end of your turn, drop prone in front of the boss. Just see what they do. Just see what they do. They're drawn. Suddenly, the champion, divine aura, makes a mockery of their evil and they can't help themselves. They stride away from the prone oracle and engage the champion in full plate with their shield raised. Okay. Anyways. Yeah, the cost for increasing a curse is not enough. I agree. I definitely agree with that. Again, I think the idea of the Oracle is cool. I just don't think they executed it particularly well, because they were concerned that people would figure out a way to mitigate the costs, and so would just be gaining a lot of power for free. And because the ceiling of this game, Pathfinder 2's ceiling, is capped. Okay, there is a level in Pathfinder 2 and you cannot get above it. The fighter does, and that's why the fighter is S tier. But you cannot get above this level. And so paying a price to gain an ability boost doesn't matter, because the best that you can do is get to this level. And that's it. You bump into the ceiling. And so you're paying a price to gain a strength bonus, but it's not really a strength bonus because you can't actually break through the ceiling. Like, you know, imagine if there was like a melee version of the Oracle and they could like get penalties to get like +4 to hit. You'd be like, oh my God, that's a great way to break through the cap of attack bonus in the game. But then people are like, well, but I figured out a way that I could totally mitigate the downside. And so it's like I get all the bonuses with none of the penalties. And that is exactly the kind of play behavior that Paizo was concerned about when they designed Pathfinder 2. So there's that. Strat, good point. All right. All right, next up is the Psychic. We don't know the Psychic well enough yet, so I'm going to leave it at C. It was C last time. I'm going to leave it at C this time. Nothing I saw in the Dark Archive material convinces me that the class plays any differently than it did at low level. It's still pretty hampered by its spell slots. It's going to rely on those amps and the focus points to amplify cantrips. Like most casters, it has fairly weak casting ability. It uses Occult, which I do give it props for, but again, only 2 slots per level. Yikes, you know. But it's supposed to be using amped cantrips, and as long as you're okay with that, I think the class probably just plays just fine. Occult is powerful enough. They still are going to end up with, you know, 4th level spells, 5th level spells, 6th level spells, 7th level spells, and, you know, this whole host of abilities. And if you can unleash often enough, then yeah, you could probably have some fun with it. Yeah, Ruin Smith says Psychic is the same, spam focus cantrips and hit with them. There you go. You suspect 2 slots per level would bring the Psychic down to a D. I would agree with you, Self-Confessed Cynic, if it weren't for the fact that the amped cantrips in some instances do feel a little stronger, and unleashing does give you a benefit, and you can do some pretty substantial damage when you're unleashed. If your fights are over really quickly, though, the Psychic is going to have a really hard time. If you have longer fights that are going 5 rounds, 6 rounds, and you can really unleash for a while, then I think the Psychic definitely earns their spot at C tier. All right, next up, we got the Ranger. So this class stands out to me because I don't think Rangers are very good. I think ranged Rangers are particularly bad. I think precision rangers usually end up using a crossbow or a gun, which has reload, which is also bad. I don't think the ranger is that great. I think melee rangers are okay. I think rangers eat a ton of actions. I think hunt prey eats up a ton of actions. And so you're like, yeah, but I could attack twice with one action. Right. So at best, you're just getting back the action that you spent to hunt prey. You've gained nothing. Like, you've gained nothing when you do that. Good if it just attacked twice. You'd be down the same number of actions. Again, but this class is very overrepresented in Northern Reaches for some reason. And I just don't think it was a C last time. I see people in chat are saying D. That might be a little too harsh for me. There you go, Bob with the thing. So Ranger, again, I definitely don't think this class is a B, but I'll put it on there anyways. I just don't see where they are getting that much stronger. I don't know that they've changed that much. No offense, Bob, but I've seen you play 2 Rangers. You played a crossbow precision ranger in our Abomination Vaults game. You're currently playing a ranged flurry ranger in our Quest for the Frozen Flame games, along with the bear support. And quite frankly, both of them has sucked. I don't know how to tell you that, but they both kind of sucked. But people still love the ranger. They just love the ranger. And our Northern Reaches game shows that for sure. YG says, I feel like you're overstating the impact of hunt prey. If there's too many enemies, they're usually not high enough level to make an impact on the ranger. Yeah, but the ranger is then what? Then they don't get to do their edge. They don't get to do all that other stuff. Like, that's a pretty shitty trade-off. I disagree. Rag and Wolfbane says, as someone who's played a lot of Ranger, I'll give it a D+ for flavor, but the way they nerf range attacks really limits the capability of the class. I'll give you another example. Again, respect to my boy Bob, who is, also playing for a YouTube audience, so they have he has different concerns. He picked up Quick Draw. The idea of the Ranger being like, oh, I could swap between melee and I could swap between my bow. And Quest for the Frozen Flame, maybe you can get away with that because it's such a low level AP, but we're talking about the mid tier here. You're not able to keep your dex and your strength high enough. Like, that's just not really an option. I'm not impressed with the class. You can give your fighter your Hunter's Edge with Warden's Boon. Right. Which is some advantage, but now if you're playing on a really big map and you're playing a ranged ranger, then you have some advantage. But a lot of times when you're a ranged ranger, everybody else in your group is not ranged, and they're just running across the field as fast as they can in order to gauge in melee. So it doesn't even really work out that well for you anyways. I think y'all are crazy. You guys put in 52% for B. No way. No way. On that rating, I will not downgrade it to a D. But a B rating for the Ranger is nuts. Bob, who's played 2 Rangers, voted D. It's just not. I have not seen a single good Ranger in Northern Reaches, but I have barely seen Rangers. And then you hurt me. I'm praying the Discords. I thought I've been doing really well. Lol. Did the tier list get bumped to the right? Did some champion happen? Playing Ranger for 3 years now in Age of Ashes, said Matthew Keene. Level 12, grade C. No one on Earth is underrating Hunt Prey, according to this overly generous play. Melee is easy C. Here's what I'm going to say about the Ranger. I think the ranged Ranger is a D. I think the melee Ranger is a C. I'm going to be generous, and I'm going to give the Ranger a C. That is what I think. I think the ranged Ranger is C or D, and I think the melee Ranger is probably a C. I'm just not impressed. I just don't see what they do. I think the the many weak attacks concept just doesn't work in the Pathfinder 2 meta. The Pathfinder 2 meta isn't about tick, 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 tick. It's just not about that. It just doesn't work that way. Pathfinder 2 meta is about crit fishing. It's about crit fishing. It's about stacking everything into like one big attack and then putting an aid on that and then putting as much bonuses as you can into it, maybe finding a way to get a true strike or a true target and then hoping for a big crit. That's the meta. Critical hits do double damage and have the critical specialization effect, and oftentimes your items trigger additional critical effects, and it's a much better action economy to put aid into a very powerful singular attack than a bunch of flurried attacks. Wait. I super chat here from Joe says the class feats alone make it a B. Great support and damage in a single class. Joe, I don't know that I agree with you, but Joe, if you want to put in chat, I will try to look for it about what you feel like are great support options from the Ranger. Because honestly, when I think about mid-tier, level 8, level 10, level 12, level 14, and I think support, it's hard to beat what the casters are going to be doing. It's hard to beat the heroism spell, the level 4 invisibility, aka greater invisibility, haste, all these amazing fly. Like these are, and the casters get dozens and dozens of these, and they have scrolls. Like it's really hard to compete on support against the casters. I agreed. I did describe what the Precision Ranger does, except the precision damage isn't enough, and you still have to hunt prey to get the precision damage. I'm not spending an action to get an extra couple. It's just not worth it. And then I don't want to talk about crossbow rangers because they have to spend so many actions reloading and using crossbow ace. It's just crazy. Every pixel counts is going to end the ranger discussion there with the shitting on the snare specialist. I think we can all agree snares suck. All right, well, C managed to climb its way back to 42%, but we are going to end that poll with 45% of you saying B, 42% of you saying C, and just a handful of percent of you saying D. I do think ranged rangers kind of stink. Ranged, I think just got very punished in this version of the game. All right, rogue. We got the rogue. All right. I don't like the rogue. I don't like the rogue class. Rogue was an A last time. I don't like the rogue class because I just don't like that style of play. But Dandy Rogue OP. But I got to admit, the rogue is really impressive. Remember how I said before that this game hates having people be good at two things, and it always seems to punish them? Like, oh, you can be a good caster, so that means you can't really be a good meleeer. You kind of have to be a shitty caster and a shitty meleeer. And you never actually, you're like, but I'm so versatile, but you never actually feel like you're really cool. By the time you get into the mid tiers, the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Rogue is a god of skills. They have double skill feats, double skill increases. But here's the thing. In Pathfinder 1, rogues were on the priest BAB, right? Fighters got plus 20 BAB. Rogues were on plus 15. They were low armor class. They had a problem. Rogues in Pathfinder 2 are just straight up a melee class. They get expert at 5 with crit spec. They get master at 13. They get armor increases. They get legendary perception. They get lightning reflexes. They get evasion. Their damage capacity is through the roof, while at the same time picking up 20 skill feats and 20 skill increases. They manage to completely own and dominate combat, but also somehow manage to completely own and dominate skills. For that reason, I am putting the rogue at S tier. Yes, that's right. S tier rogue. I hate to do it. Don't like the rogue, but I think that they're too good. They don't pay anything. They are this god of skills. They have every skill in the game. They have every skill feat in the game, but they're also just insane in combat. They've got great class feats. Opportunistic riposte, or whatever it's called, like the one that when if somebody hits them, you can use a reaction to just attack them. They get that extra reaction. They've got incredible class feats in the mid tier. They're so fun. They're so exciting. You could make different builds with them. My ranger just carries arrows for the road. And I think that legitimately, I think that you could play, a ranged rogue. I think you could play a melee rogue. The reason I'm saying the rogue is too good is because, oh yeah, gang up is also insane. Like, and the other thing about it, remember, is the rogue, what is the price that the rogue has to pay? Like the barbarian has to spend an action to rage and gets penalty to armor class, right? The magus has to set up the spell strike. The rogue essentially needs the person to be flat-footed. And you don't really have to spend actions to do that. Like other people can spend actions. Just the act of engaging with a target, oftentimes all that it requires you to do is move around and attack them. But additionally, at this level, you've now into the mid tiers. Everybody's crits, everybody's critting, everybody's got flails, everybody's got gnomish flick maces. Creatures are prone 99% of the time. You're just gonna be sneak attacking for all time. I'm really impressed with what they did with the rogue, but I still think my ranger took distracting shots just to help the rogue. Love it. Sneak attack used to be limited, once a round or something like that. Gone are those days. Sneak attack used to be like, oh, you crit? Well, the double damage only applies to the weapon damage, not to your sneak attack, not to your precision damage. Gone are those days. Oh, well, you're doing sneak attack damage, but that doesn't apply against incorporeal creatures or constructs or plants or undead. There's a handful of creatures, just a handful of creatures who are still immune to precision damage. But for the most part, rogues just wreck in combat, and they do so while also simultaneously getting double skill feats and double skill increases. So it doesn't feel like they paid for anything. They just got a bunch of stuff. And every other class is having to pay for it. These people did not. I think they're S tier. All right, the poll said 40% of you said S tier, 60% of you said A tier. I don't give out this S tier lightly, but I do think it is. I do think it is well deserved. Bob, I will talk to you tomorrow. Bob and I, instead of playing D&D tomorrow and having fun, our D&D session got canceled, and so Bob and I are going to be working in the studio trying to get it ready for you so that we can do more cool live in-person games and more live in-person live nightlives. That'll be a lot of fun too. All right, Sorcerer is next. Wow, we're just keeping this going here. Now, this is going to seem dramatic, but the Sorcerer is S tier as well. Why? Because the Sorcerer kind of does what every caster does. They just do it better. Spontaneous is not a price in this campaign, in this game. It's just not a price that you have to pay. Self-confessed cynic, you missed my super chat. Sorry, buddy. Oh. Snares get broken OP at level 12. Actually, maybe S. I'm sure whatever stupid, degenerate snare thing that your OP car op video game group found is probably not legitimate enough to even consider any reasonable explanation. But I hesitate. I hesitate to disagree with you, but I find a very hard time to believe that they are OP at level 12. I apologize, self-confessing. Thank you for that super chat. Every snare I've seen in the entire game. Quest for the Frozen Flame uses a lot of snares at the early level, and they all suck. So, degenerate, he says. Degenerate AF. I almost banned it. Oh, so it was degenerate, it was OP, and it was S tier, and you almost banned it. Got it. Okay. Got it. Thank you. So yeah, sorcerers. Sorcerers are just very, very, very strong. They can be any tradition. Obviously, if we are talking S tier, we're probably talking, you know, one of the better ones. We might not be talking divine. They get cross-blooded evolution, and eventually they get greater cross-blooded evolution. This allows them to essentially be arcane, and they can go and pick up 2 of the best spells, and we know that some of those spells are things like heal, or heroism. A sorcerer can go and pick up cross-blooded evolution, pick up heal, put it in at first level or second level, make it a signature spell, and now they have access to dozens and dozens of heals every day, spontaneously, and they heal for just as much as anybody else casting heal. Oh, how much are you down? Oh, you're only down 30 hit points. Okay, I'll use a level 3 slot and heal you for 3d8 plus 24. Oh, you're down a bunch. Oh, I'll use a level 6 slot, right? Very, very powerful. Now you're like, oh, the Oracle can do that. They're a spontaneous caster. Yes, but the Sorcerer can be doing this and be arcane and have chain lightning and have all these other crazy things. It's way too powerful. It's way too powerful. I mean, Sorcerer is better at occult than Bard. They don't get cantrips, but they get more spells and crossbow evolution. To be fair, I think a lot of the problem with the Sorcerer being S tier is cross-blooded evolution. If you haven't played it and you haven't seen it in effect, it is very, very, very powerful. Joe, I think that's also reasonable. If signature spells were a class feat, it would put spontaneous back in line with prepared. I'm inclined to agree with you as well. I also think that the bloodline powers that you get through the Sorcerer, I think some of the bloodlines and some of the focus powers are actually pretty okay. But honestly, every Sorcerer I've ever really seen never uses them. You get so many spell slots as a Sorcerer, you just don't really have to pay that price. So very, very powerful class. You know, at the mid tiers, they get some really good feats. Cross-blooded evolution being the big one. Because of their ability to kind of be a better caster than every other caster, even when that caster is in your party, that makes them S tier to me. I think that they are just able to step on too many toes and have that much versatility and flexibility. The fact that they could be any tradition anyways, you know, lets them just kind of just dip into too many people's, you know, that's their jam. And the Sorcerer just comes over and goes, oh, you're a divine caster? I'm a better divine caster. Oh, Druid, you're a primal caster? You can, okay, cool. I'm an elementalist and I'm a better primal caster than you. Also, I took dangerous sorcery, and also I have this bloodline power, so actually I do like way more damage than you do. And like, it's like the Sorcerer is just able to just kind of shit in everybody's pot, you know, like they're just better at being what they are than the other person is. And it's just kind of like, oh, and I randomly have more spells, and randomly, because of the way Pathfinder 2 works and signature spells work, I can cast my spells at the exact perfect level that we need to cast them at. It's just really problematic. But you don't have prepared. Okay, yeah, but I've got a bucket list of scrolls that's just overflowing from my bags of holding and stuff, and my Heward's handy haversack. So I think the Sorcerer is too strong. I take all these Sorcerer points and smile. Oh, people, he is a real son of a bitch, isn't he? I just think the Sorcerer is probably too strong in this edition of the game. Too good. The chat felt like they should have been an A. 36% of the chat did agree with me and say that they were an S. So, yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying the Sorcerer can do everything, Ben. The Bard deserves their A spot. But, man, when you're talking about on the, you know, if you look at the top tier right now, we've got 3 S classes. The Fighter, the Rogue, and the Sorcerer. And that's because they kind of do what they're doing better than everybody, and it doesn't really feel like they pay a price for it. Everybody else feels like they have to pay a price to do the thing, to be the thing. But these 3 classes don't pay any price, and in most instances, they kind of actually do it better than everybody else. Do it better than people who are paying the price. That's nuts. That's just insane, right? They don't pay anything, and yet they're still stronger. It just doesn't even make any sort of sense. All right. Summoner is next. And I got to be honest with you. I spent a good chunk of this afternoon playing around with the Summoner. I had my Spells and Magic book out, and I really was digging into this class and just figuring out what it really does. We had it at sea last time. And I'll be honest with you. I don't know where to go with this. Now, at high level, everybody else, the Sorcerer, they're going to have something like 28 spell slots. You're going to have 4. You have this shared bank of hit points. You have an Eidolon, which is essentially what I described before. It is a flatline creature. It is a expert at 5. It is a master at 13. It gets increased armor at 9 or 11 or whatever. Its AC is essentially medium, 4 item plus 1 dex, or it's all dex. It's either a strength based or an int based, right? It's like a rogue or a fighter, or like a rogue or a barbarian, but without rage and feats and without sneak attack and feats. Like the Eidolon is just this like literally completely boring melee creature. Now, you can take evolution feats, which can increase its versatility somewhat. There's ability boost and boost Eidolon and resilient Eidolon, but now the Summoner is just casting cantrips. Now, the chat can answer me for this. The way where I would see the Summoner being reasonable and powerful is if there was a way for the Summoner to be able to cast a 2-action spell and have the Eidolon attack twice. And I don't think that is possible in the game. Tandem step at level 4 seems like a must-have feat. There's a lot of silly feats in there, like, oh, me and my Eidolon can both attack at the same time. That's silly. The Summoner is also kind of in this weird situation, right? Because you and your Eidolon share skill feats. So if you want your big burly strength Eidolon to be athleticsing people, you need to take athletics, but your strength is going to be 10 or 8. Isn't what I described a class feature? No, bro. Act as one lets you spend 1, 2, or 3 actions, and then you or your Eidolon gets 1, 2, or 3 actions, and the other person gets 1 action left. So you spend, but see, but that's not the way it works. If I take act as 1, I spend 2 actions, and that means I get 2 actions and my Eidolon gets 1 actions. And I use my 2 actions to cast a spell. My Eidolon uses it to attack. There's 1 action left on me, but I can't give that to my Eidolon. It's locked out. You can only use act as 1 once per round. So you cannot do 2 action activities. I agree. And now someone before mentioned Dragon Fury, but Dragon Fury is 2 actions. You can give the action to your Eidolon? Oh, screw me. Well, okay. Then that's actually not that bad. Then I'm inclined to leave it at C. If you can do that, I missed that. Because I thought when I see this, by the way, I mean, for God's sake, I ran the damn Pathfinder channel, and I read the class this morning and still didn't get it right. All right, let me pull this thing up here. Where are we going here? What do we got? This is important. PF2 Summoner AON. All right, we got here. We got the Summoner class. All right. Okay, Summoner. All right. Eidolon. Action. Tandem. Oh my god, there's so many actions here. All right, here we go. You and your Eidolon share your actions and multiple attack penalty. Each round, you can use any of your actions, including reactions and actions, for yourself or your Eidolon. Okay. Okay. All right. I respect that. That actually is pretty cool. That means that you can cast a spell and your Eidolon can go and, do its thing. Okay, that's fine. So self-confessed cynic says, I thought you had to spend at least one, but it turns out you do not. Right, you just can't both cast a 2-action spell. Correct, because if I use act as 1 for 2 actions, I could use my 2 actions to cast a spell, and that would give it 1 action, but it has to use that 1 action right there, and then I have 1 action left over, which it could use, or I could use, but, I don't want to go B. YG. I still feel like it is a pretty... You're jumping through a lot of hoops, people. You're jumping through a lot of hoops just to be able to do normal baseline damage. You really are. You take if you get reflex save, you're both taking the worst. Unless you take a feat, but baseline, you're all getting... You and your Eidolon are getting the worst. Quinn's is definitely not an A. Still C because it confused Derek. But you know what? It not only did it confuse me, it confused self-confessed cynic. Sorry, act together, not act as one. You know what, Quinn's hero point to you because me calling it act as one. Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't make any sense because you're literally acting together. But I like, the idea being like you're one mind acting. I like Strat's final thing here. Brothleth, the reason why I am not going to give this class a downgrade to a D is exactly what you just described. Have you ever seen your Eidolon attacking twice and Summoner casting Electric Arc? It is insane damage. When I was reading the class, Brothleff, I didn't think you could do that because I didn't think that you could share that action to your Eidolon. I thought the Summoner had the base actions, and the only time that you could send over the actions was through act together. And so I was thinking, okay, well, there's no way for me, and I was exactly thinking that exact scenario, Brothleff. There's no way for me to cast Electric Arc and have my Eidolon attack twice. And I do completely agree that the tandem step is a fantastic feat because yes, you could both move for 1 action. I could move, my Eidolon could move, get into position. Then I can use my remaining 2 actions to act together. I can cast a 2-action spell and I can give my Eidolon the bonus action so that it can attack. So that way you're doing 5 actions in a turn. Anytime you can do 5 actions in a turn without casting haste is impressive. So, I do have a question though. Okay. I'm going to bring it up. This is everybody here is in chat. Now there are some downsides, okay? Because you're kind of I could see a lot of cloth classes will have an 18 in their primary stat, and then they will have a 16 in their dexterity because they want to get their AC as high as possible, as quickly as possible. But I could really easily see that because you do need the hit points and you do send this person into combat, the Summoner might be tempted to put something like a 14 into con and then have 14 dex, so their AC might be lower. And you could also tank your charisma, which would give you some more points to put into dexterity and constitution. But if you tank your charisma, the Summoner already lags behind everybody else in terms of their save proficiencies for their spell DC. I'm sorry, not their save proficiency, for their spell DC. They're already behind. And if you tank your charisma so that you can boost your dexterity and constitution at character creation, I feel like your DCs are going to be even worse. So, and I don't like that, my 10 strength or 8 strength Summoner it's probably going to end up having to take like athletics if I have a strength-based something. Like, I don't want half athletic. Like, why should I have to take athletics? Okay, here was my question for those of you at home. If there is a feat, Christ, extend boost, and extend boost gives you the extend boost cantrip. I'm sorry, focus spell, and it is a verbal, free action verbal. Okay, to cast, and you get to make a check, and it increases the duration of your either boost Eidolon or reinforce Eidolon spell, right? Which is cool. I like that. But here we go. Sorry, it's hard to read this. God damn. OBS is a pain in the ass. People don't ever let anybody tell you that it's not. There we go. OBS. Thing of Champions here, just so I can show you guys this stupid spell. Okay, here we go. Extend boost. Okay, so you've got this free action spell, free action focus spell. It says if your next action is to cast boost Eidolon or Eidolon, you get to make a skill check, and if you succeed, it lasts 3 rounds instead of 1 round, and if you fail, it still only lasts 1 round, but you don't spend the focus points, so you get it returned. I like this. Is there a way that I can, when you act as one, that's an activity. Sorry, when you act together, that's an activity. But it's clearly distinct because you get to do things, and your Eidolon gets to do things, or your Eidolon gets to do things, and you get to do things. This is a rules question. If I act as one, and my action is going to be to cast Boost Eidolon, can I extend Boost within that section? In other words, can I act as one, and within the act is, when I act together, and can I cast Boost Eidolon inside the act together, but still extend boost the Boost Eidolon before? YG says, you're wrong again, Derek. The summoners can have different proficiencies from its Eidolon. I think only if you take that 1 feat, YG. I think baseline, you are trained in a number of proficiencies, and then your Eidolon gives you a number of proficiencies, and you're both proficient in those. The summoner gets 3 plus int, and then each of the different Eidolons gives you 2. So you baseline have 5 proficiencies, and you share them. Right. This is exactly a subordinate action question, right? Within the space of an activity, which is a subordinate action, can you interrupt that with a free action? -2 points for being complicated. Here's the problem, though, Quins. I think what you people are failing to extend about this class is, yes, you get to be an Eidolon and move the Eidolon, and you get to be a spellcaster, but you're not that good of a combatant, and you're definitely not that good of a spellcaster, right? This is that situation where I was saying before that because you get to kind of do both things, you pay a price for it. And the price is how good you are at the thing. You know, yeah, the Eidolon's got, you know, all these things. Oh, I can do all these extra actions. It's like, yeah. And the summoner can use a focus spell and use Boost Eidolon through a cantrip, through a link cantrip, and cast it onto you, and you can act together, and then the net of it is, when all's said and done, your Eidolon gets to move and probably strike for, you know, about the same amount of damage as the Barbarian or Ranger would do. You're jumping through all these hoops and going through all this extra stuff, but the net is you hit the C ceiling and you just end up doing reasonable amount of damage. So that's why it's not actually that insane or crazy. Summoner is a Gish with extra steps. So but yeah, I don't think free actions can only be used in an activity if they have a trigger. So that means if Catholic is correct, you cannot do what I wanted to do, which is within the activity of the subordinate action of use it. Is that right, Catholic? So I'm also, again, I'm very aware of the fact that they only get 4 spells per day. And I mean, that is a concern and a problem for me. 47% of you said it was C, 35% of you said B, 17% said D. I'm going to stick with C. I was going to probably move it into D, but because of what you pointed out to me, that's a really great point, and I think it maintains its position as C. Good job. All right. Swashbuckler. I know it's almost 10 o'clock, so we're going to go a little bit quicker. Hear about this. Thaumaturge stays at A. The class continues to impress and perform. You pick up extra versatility because now you have your second implement into your third implement, and now you could be an expert in 2 implements in the mid tiers. Just a great class. I think it stays. It maybe even gains a little bit of extra fun because you're still as good as you were or low levels, but now you get to do it in 2 implements. You don't really feel like you're paying a price to do all that. The class is still really, really good. We don't have enough experience with it yet. It could be a broken class. It could be S. It could be S. Okay, Wizard. Wizard to me is, a great class. Arcane is a fantastic tradition. It's the most powerful tradition. It gets a bump up over the Druid and the Cleric because of the strength of the tradition and because of the Wizard getting so many ways to get bonus spell slots, in addition to things like spell blending, which lets you get even more bonus level high spell slots, which are your most valuable. The Druid does not have these are all spellcasting classes, people. You're not judging this on the base of the class features. You're not basing this on the strength of the class feats. You're basing this on the strength of how many spells do they get and how strong are those spells. The Wizard has Arcane. Those are very, very, very strong, stronger by far than the Primal and the Occult, and the Wizard gets a lot of them. So compared to the Druid and the Cleric, they outperform. Do they have the complete domination of the Sorcerer? No, because the Sorcerer can cast basically the same number of spells, but because of cross-bedded evolution and better access to focus spells and focus powers than the Wizard does, and the power of spontaneous over prepared, the Wizard is hampered by their book. I think the Wizard is an easy A tier. Arcane tradition really pulling it through it. And so I'm not going to go super deep here, but I am going to go to the Witch. And here's the thing for me with the Witch. The Witch can be any tradition, including Arcane. I think it can be any tradition. Maybe, yeah, I think it could be Divine, Primal. So it's kind of wonky. It's like the Sorcerer in that way. But it's prepared, and it has limited spell slots. It doesn't get the bonus spell slots like the Wizard does. It doesn't have Divine Font. So it's very similar to the Druid, in which it's a 3 spell per level prepared class, but it uses Arcane instead of Primal. And it gets some hexes and focus spells and a lot of focus on the Familiar. I think they overvalue Familiar way too much in Pathfinder 2. I'm not a big fan of the Familiar. I don't think they really know what they want to do with it and how it's operating and all this jazz. Honestly, people, I don't know where to put the Witch, so I'm just going to go with what chat says. We had the Witch at D tier before. I don't think the Witch went down. Remember, one of the reasons it was D tier before is because at low levels, you just don't have a lot of spell slots. You're higher level now in the mid tiers. You have access to potentially Arcane, Primal, Occult, depending on what your patron is. I looked through all those lessons and all of those focus hexes. I didn't see anyone that was particularly good. I'm not going to lie. I didn't see any that really stood out to me. Cackle might be the single best one, but even then it's like, okay, I mean, you're going to pick a whole class because you have a focus spell that lets you sustain for 1 extra round. And again, you get all those extra familiar powers, but I'm just not impressed with familiars. Maybe I'm missing something. I mean, they're never going to be really much more than either a shitty spell battery or a scout. So I am content to let the chat. My gut instinct is that they're probably a C, but again, I could be wrong here. B, C, I don't know, something. I don't think the hexes are particularly good either. I'm just not really sure where they are. In my opinion, the witch just comes across as like, well, you could be any tradition and you're kind of weird and spooky. Just be a sorcerer or a wizard. I just feel like both those classes do what the witch does really better. Now the wizard is locked into arcane, sure. So if you wanted to be a divine or a primal or a occult, I would just be a sorcerer or a bar. I don't know. I'd be anything else but the witch. I just feel like you're like, oh, you're an occult witch. Yeah, but you could just be a bard and you'd get this, you'd be spontaneous and you'd have all the bard abilities, and which are, I think, way better than the hexes. So my dogs are fighting each other down here. Strat. Which can cast slow 6 at this level, so. PDOX. Yeah, we can rate the fighter at the end again. All right, let's see what the chat says. 52% of the chat say C. 26% say D. 22% say B. So half are at C, 25% are at B, 25% are at D. I think it's pretty solid that we'll put it at C. All right, our last class is Swashbuckler, a class I did not particularly think is really great. Actually, before we get to Swashbuckler, let me do PDOX. PDOX asked us to rank the fighter, which we did not do. So I'm going to do a quick fighter poll. Fighter! Is it S? Is it A?
Knightish tipped $10. Wow. These classes must be well designed with so many in B and C. Shame about that Oracle toe.
Thank you, Knightish, for the $10 tip. We know we love it. Knightish is also our new hype boss. Way to go, buddy. Knightish, appreciate the tip, and I also appreciate all the stuff that you bring in and add to our Patreon Discord. You've been really great there, and I do appreciate your posts and everything you talk about. Very strong. I generally speaking, I agree. What I'll say. All right, so fighter, 80% of you say S tier, 20% say A tier, and 4%, like one of you says B tier. Crazy. Yeah, but Knightish, it's quality over quantity, and a lot of times you make great jokes, and I think they go underrated. I think I've given you hero points before because I've been like underrated joke. You and London Matthews, I think, both have underrated jokes. And I try it when I find them, and I think they're funny, and no one seems to have noticed them but me, and I'll usually hero point them. All right, so we got our last one here, Swashbuckler. And this works out because this is another class I'm not really sure about. I was down on this class, but then I got the chance to see it played at like in the level 10 to 15 range. And I got to be honest with you, I was fairly impressed with it. I don't think the class is definitely not, I'm going to put A on here, but nobody should vote A. This class is not an A tier, okay? The real question is Swashbuckler a B or a C? Here's the thing. The Swashbuckler to me is a capable melee combatant. Finishing moves, panache can be pretty powerful, but you are jumping through hoops to do it, and it's somewhat GM dependent. And in some instances, it can even rely on a skill check, which is not always my favorite thing. Some of the finishing moves, especially ones that you take through feats, can be very, very powerful. But it feels a little bit like the Swashbuckler is paying a lot of prices for style and flair that don't really translate well into raw damage. At the same time, I feel like a Swashbuckler brings a lot more to a party than a barbarian does. Okay, so ignore the flavor. I'm talking strictly flavor is not incompetent. We cannot judge on flavor here. I'm saying that mechanically, a Swashbuckler can do damage. There's no doubt about that. Some of the finishing moves are particularly strong. The barbarian can do damage, but Swashbuckler probably not as much. But I feel like they do bring a lot of extra stuff that the Barbarian does not bring to the table, honestly, or the Ranger. And I kind of agree with Pixel. It's a mix between the Rogue and the Fighter, which are both S-tier classes. I don't think that makes our Swashbuckler an A, but I think the Swashbuckler could be a B. So I am going to let the chat weigh in, and I'm going to let them decide. We got 25 votes. We'll give it another couple minutes because this is our last class. We did go an extra hour today to 3. I thought this was going to be quick. I thought this was going to be an hour and a half, but I forgot about the only style rival to the Gunslinger, plus 2 points. Nice. Thank you, Austin, for that. Yeah, I mean, literally the Swashbuckler, is all about style. It's literally about panache. And that makes you stronger and better and able to leap. Swashbucklers can be pretty quick, too. I appreciate that. I know, well, you have one long strider. Not everybody is a cheesy munchkin like you and me. So I appreciate, again, we have to judge this based off of what the class can get. And at the mid-tier, you don't have infinite money yet. You will at high tier, but you're still making choices. I don't know. I was surprisingly impressed by the Swashbuckler that we had in our group. By the way, it was played by my friend George, who is a constant troll. And the name of the Swashbuckler was a Tengu, or a bird person. And the name of the bird person Swashbuckler was Albert Ross. So its name was Albert Ross. Yes. Albatross. It was horrible. So I'm going to go with the chat here. We got 45% of you say B, 35% of you say C, and 20% of you say A. So that makes me feel pretty confident that we can safely put the Swashbuckler into the B tier. So there we have it. We have ourselves a mid-tier guide, and I think it looks pretty strong. We still, now, because of the strength of spellcasting, and because of the strength of all those skill feats, we do have 3 classes now. Let me zoom up in here. Let me expand. This is our, at the bottom here was our, original tier list. I'm sorry, to the right is our original tier list. This is our low tier list right here. This is our low. And then this is our new one. So we can see that Fighter stayed the same. Rogue moved up. Sorcerer moved up a lot, showing you how much powerful they get once they actually get their spells going and signature spells kick in. Bard maintains at A. Thaumaturge maintains at A. Cleric dropped here. Actually, I'm going to swap these because that makes a little bit more sense because we're talking about where they started and where they ended up. Okay, sorry about that. I know this is confusing, but look at me. I'm grabbing all of my on-stream elements. There we go. Oh my God. There we go. Okay, here we go. So Fighter stayed A, Rogue came up to, or sorry, Fighter stayed S, Rogue went up to S, Sorcerer made 2 jumps. So Sorcerer made the largest jump. Sorcerer went from a B to an S, and I really do think that's important. I think that's how powerful cross-blooded evolution is, and I think that's how powerful the spontaneous list in a tradition is, along with some of the abilities that you get from your greater bloodline. Bard and Thaumaturge both stayed at A. Cleric was A, but now starts to drop down because ultimately the War Priest is no longer, in my opinion, a viable class from 13 or on, and mechanically you could play it and have fun. Again, a naked character rolling around the dirt probably works in Pathfinder 2. Gunslingers stayed at B because you got to respect that legendary proficiency. Monk stayed at B, pretty much doing the same thing that they've been doing the whole time. Let's see. Druid got a little bit of an improvement. More spell slots means a lot more versatility and power coming out of your class. What else do we got here? Magus stayed the same. Psychic stayed the same. Summoner, I was tempted to drop them because of the low spells, but I was convinced you all did a good job, and I'm going to keep them at C. I'm going to try to play a Summoner as my next character class, and see if it's as powerful as Quinn seems to think it is. Wizard went up from a C class all the way to A. So there you go. Both, and when I'm assuming a Sorcerer, I'm assuming you're going to be a powerful tradition. You could be a Divine. I think Sorcerer and Wizard both got huge increases because of the vast number of spell slots they get and of the power of the arcane spell slots, especially as you get into that mid-tier and you get access to some of the best and most powerful classes of the game. If you are part of our All Spells rank, you know that we are in the S++ range with things like Slow 6 and Chain Lightning and so on and so forth. Absolutely huge breaking. Alchemist and Oracle got upgraded. Inventor stayed the same. The Witch got tinged up from a D to a C because, again, more slots, but ultimately I still feel like is just a bad wizard. And the Swashbuckler was at C tier, but now has been upgraded to B tier. So good for the Swashbuckler. I think that's pretty cool. Oh, I can't wait for the Summoner reactions. Oh, I know. Hey, El Deuterino. Thank you for the super chat. I feel like I've been stealing from you watching all these amazing spell review videos. Keep it up, man. Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. Incredible. Thank you very much for that tip. El Deuterino is our new hype boss. He's going to get a Horizon Thunder Sphere for a $50 super chat.
Horizon Thunder Sphere.
All right. Thank you, El Deuterino. That's awesome. Listen, we put 80 plus hours of content out there with the spell review videos, and now we're doing more with these class tier reviews. I'm very happy that you appreciate them. I'm very thankful for your generous donation. It's great to know that people do appreciate these. It's very, very humbling. Thank you very much for your generous super chat. Thank you to everybody who came out tonight and supported us. I played a summoner in Pathfinder 1, but summoning was broken in Pathfinder 1, and I summoned a lot of, D4+1 Celestial Dire Lions. And then I had 17 actions to turn. It was awesome. We'll see how it goes. But Self-Confessed Cynic is betting that the summoner will disappoint. I hope that they are wrong. So I'm going to blow this up again here. This is our old one here. Here we go. So this is our final tier ranking for this. Overall, I would say I think the classes got a little stronger as we went into the mid-tier, and that's good. And I think if you've played Pathfinder 2 for long enough and you've managed to play through the low levels a bunch and you've gotten into the higher levels of the game, I think you feel that way too. Smith, from the channel, likes to say that it feels to him like the classes really start to come online around level 7, 8, 9. You have enough feats and features to really feel like you can do what you want to do. The spellcasters have enough spells to not feel like you're just stuck casting cantrips after the second fight of the day. You have enough depth in your abilities to really be creative in your problem solving. And ideally, your class, if you're not a spellcaster, has enough feats that you feel like you're not just a one-trick pony. Now, Pathfinder 2 being what it is, sometimes the most optimal thing is to be a one-trick pony. And that is an unfortunate regret of the system and something that I think, hopefully that's something that they can address and fix. And maybe it's not something that can even be fixed in this edition, but it is something that I think I would like to see them address at some point in the future. Nightish, by the way, does Dark Archive change any of the math on the Divine Tradition? I'm betting not. No, it did not. We have not officially done a Dark Archive review, but I've looked through it and I didn't really find that it added anything. The biggest boost that we've gotten to the Divine Tradition was Inner Radiance Torrent, which came out of Spells and Magic. Let's see. You will feel weak as a summoner. It's just the fact that you are two people doing decent actions overall will do pretty well. Also, make sure you do this. Play a summoner with a strength of 18. My opinion changes drastically if you are not this. Well, how can I play a summoner with a strength of 18? Do you mean my Eidolon needs a strength of 18? Oh, yes, you do. Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have considered playing the Dex build Eidolon at all. The Dragon Eidolon looked particularly appealing. The Breath Weapon actually didn't seem that horrible, and getting Draconic Fury at 7 seemed like a real good win, but I was not impressed with the Dex Eidolons for sure. But the dragon one stood out to me. So, you know what? If you're a summoner fan and you want to say, hey, Derek, you're going to be playing your next summoner, leave a comment below. Let me know if you're watching this on the VOD, what summoner I should play. I am curious to try one out at some point. Again, I played a summoner PF1. I'm not expecting it to be that strong, but I do think having learned that you can split the actions up between you as you go through your turn on top of the act together tandem action really makes me like the class quite a bit more. So I'm not going to love the fact that I only get 4 spells. That does suck, but you know, you can try to get some staves and wands and scrolls and I don't know, just accept that you're going to be casting a lot of focus spells and cantrips. But if I'm at low level, you know, having my Eidolon punch something while boosted and me getting to, you know, rip off a electric arc doesn't sound horrible. Doesn't sound horrible. Doesn't sound great. It doesn't sound horrible. I think that at high level, so Summoner B, no. No, I don't want to go that far. You know, Jason, I was looking at some of the understudy. In fact, I actually took notes. I don't think I have my notebook here when I was going through it. I was looking at some of the arcane understudy and arcane thing, and I wasn't sure how powerful that was really going to get. But because it does seem like it was a little bit weaker. Again, I think the summoner might be trying to do too much and end up, you know, paying the price for it because the game won't let it be good at both, and so you end up being kind of mediocre at both. And a lot of times in this game, it's better to put all your eggs in one basket. That's just the way it works. Yeah. Anyways. Oh, yeah, I should even note that, by the way. The summoners can be from different traditions, and it's like, oh, God, if you're not arcane, what the hell are you even doing? I mean, that's just nonsense. For sure. The summoner also pays the price to do things that most of the time GMs let you kind of get away with anyways, but you have to pay the price because now you can like officially do it, and it kind of doesn't matter that you can do it. Like in some capacity, right? You are paying as a summoner, you are paying the price because you can share your senses with the Eidolon, and the Eidolon can share your senses. But the reality is, like 99% of the time, you're not going to do that. And if you do it, it's not actually, it's more of a flavor thing. And it's like, if you didn't have a summoner who couldn't share senses, it's like, yeah, you would have just made a perception check, or you would have just made like a bluff check. I don't know. Like you would have just had some other way to just do it and deal with the situation that you were in where that came up anyways. That's one of the reasons why like some of these classes, they like feel like they have these knick-knacky abilities, and I'm like, just give me something that's actually useful and not just flavorful. I mean, hopefully when they did the math on it, they weren't really dinging you that much, but I just wish the class had more spells. Steven, I completely agree with you. Hey, this is the best tradition, arcane. How about they get the only item that gives you bonus lower level spells? What is even with that? Alrighty. Well, let me, I thought I saw Ben come into the chat. Ben, welcome, friend. Glad to see you here. We've been going for a while here. Thought this was going to be a quick one, but you know, we had some discussion points to make, and people made some interesting points, and I'm not opposed to saying that you were right about certain classes, and you may well be right about the summoner. Is it going to ever be an A class for me? Probably not. I cannot get away from the fact that it is just, at best, a mediocre melee combatant with a really shitty caster tacked onto it. But could that be a B? I could see it being a B. That is a possibility. Not 100% possibility, but it is a possibility. I want to thank Self-Confessed Cynic, who had a number of super chats tonight. Thank you, Self-Confessed Cynic, for staying with us. Thank you also, Self-Confessed Cynic, for helping me put this together. Strat, also, for helping me put this list together. Austin Moser came in with a bunch of super chats as well and was our hype boss for a while. El Deuterino finished us off with a $50 super chat and is our current hype boss. So special thanks to them for that big super chat. Joe sent some super chats and want to say thank you to him. Who else did we have tonight? And Damien started off our session tonight along with Scratch Paper Games with a series of super chats as well. Guardian of the Rune had a $5 super chat near the beginning of the time. And Henry started us off with a $10 Stream Elements tip. So a lot of super chats tonight. Thank you, everybody. I do want to say, hi, Reddit. And I'm sorry that I don't love every single class in Pathfinder 2. I think they're all fine and probably have a lot of fun and flavor for each and every person out there. But the fact is, mechanically, they are not all the same. There are better ones. There are weaker ones. Doesn't mean you shouldn't play it. It just means that it probably needs some sort of mechanical bump or effect because it just doesn't perform the same level as some of the other classes. Judging a class's mechanical balance because you like the flavor is silly. That might be a great reason to play it, but you should never defend the class based off of your subjective opinion of its flavor, if that makes any sense. Let's see. Any last chats or super chats? I don't think so. Everything to S because the base math says you win. Well, I mean, there is some truth to that, Strat, I won't say. Yes, Nightish. I am criticizing Pathfinder 2. Number one, I don't talk about systems on this channel that I don't play and I'm not engaged with. If I think a system sucks, I play it once and I don't really talk about it again. So a system that I'm playing and I'm talking about is a system that I'm interested in, and that means that I'm interested in Pathfinder 2, and I think there's a lot of potential there. Do I think there's a lot of problems? Of course there's a lot of problems. And do I think that the system suffers from trying to be too many things at once? Absolutely. I think that realistically and reasonably, Pathfinder 2 is not as good as a lot of the people out there think it is. It is overly complex in some of the worst ways. And a lot of times you are gaining feats and powers and choosing things just so that you can do the thing that you should just be able to do anyways. It feels like you're making meaningful choices, but oftentimes you're not. You're just making choices to make them. And that is very appealing for some people, but I don't think people should treat this as the be-all, end-all system of all time. I don't know what that system is, but it's not Pathfinder 2. It's not D&D either. Joe, thank you for all your videos. Loved your spell rankings. Look forward to your high-level rankings. Joe, thank you for that $28 super chat. Also appreciate the incredible recognition of all the work we did for the spell rankings. My hat's off to you. My headphones off to you if you were able to go through all of that. It was a lot of RPG discussion.
RPG! 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 RPG!
Cam Bowman, so thank you, Joe. Very generous of you, and I appreciate everything that you did for us tonight. Thank you so much. Cam says, the illusion of choice, the infamous Taking 20 video. We had a pretty lengthy discussion in our Patreon Discord, in our Pathfinder forums there about, are rotations a given? Are there best options and you end up taking them and you're like, well, I should have just gotten this anyways. Why do I have to take it as a feat? Now it feels like a choice, but it was never a choice to begin with. I think there is some truth to that. I think there are elements within the game where it is an illusion of choice. A lot of skill feats fall into that category for me, for sure. In my opinion, every D20 game has a problem of trying to do too much at once. I also agree with that. I actually think the problem with D20 games is most D20 games aren't trying to be anything. It reminds me of one of my, many favorite scenes from the episode, the show Community, which is a really, really good show. But Jeff used to be a lawyer, and now he's in community college, and they ask him to teach a class on law, and he doesn't want to do it. And one of the other cast members says something to him, and he doesn't want to teach, and he's being lazy, and she tries to get him to teach, and he says no, and then he says something to counter to her, and she runs off. And he says, they're like, how did you just do that? You just won that argument. And he said, it's simple. Annie, the other character, picked an argument to lose, and all I have to do is prove that anything she says is false, and automatically her entire argument is flawed. The problem with D20 games is the same thing. D20 games aren't trying to pick a position. They don't want to be about anything. They want to be this vague fantasy adventure game, but also you can role play and not roll dice if that's what your group wants to do, even though we don't really have any mechanics designed to support that, but we're gonna make our press and advertising make it sound like story is important in our game, even though it's not, because they don't want to turn anyone away. D20 games are trying to be everything to everyone at all times. They are trying to be as generic and formless as possible so that you can just jam it into every possible scenario and people will go, see, it works. My Victorian newspaper game, I'm using Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, well, I'm playing a theater group that is traveling from circus to circus, and we're using Pathfinder 2, and it works just fine. And so, yeah, it's, you know, it's okay. And the thing is, it doesn't do any of those things well. It doesn't even necessarily do them, I mean, it kind of does them badly, but it does it with the illusion that it's somehow doing it. Oh, because our system has a skill system, and that means anything goes, and people just point to skill systems and backgrounds, and like that matters. And that's good, because that's why D&D is number one and Pathfinder is number two. It's why they sell the most, because yes, there's brand recognition, but there's also the idea that this is the game for being, for if you want to play TTRPGs, don't look any further than D20. Nin, as much as you're making fun of D20 games for that, a lot of people clearly like it. I'm playing in at least 2 D20 games. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But it's the cheese pizza of TTRPGs. I like cheese pizza. Maybe it's pepperoni. Oh, our game is really spicy. It's pepperoni pizza, right? It's designed to be maximally palatable, and it's designed to appeal to as many people as am I a foodie? Not necessarily, but you know, do I like crazy cuisines and really crazy stuff? Have I eaten fried scorpions in China? I have. Do I like cheese pizza? I do. If I go somewhere and someone has a sheet pizza, a 40 cut of cheese pizza, half pepperoni, half cheese, do I enjoy that? I do. And that's a great night, and I'm going to enjoy that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying your D&D and Pathfinder 2 campaign. There's no problem with whatsoever. But the evangelism of it, preaching it as the one true role-playing game, that is a bit short-sighted. That's a bit short-sighted. And so I will not fault anyone for ordering a cheese pizza, especially for an unknown group of people. I don't know who eats meat here. I don't know who doesn't eat it. But like calling cheese pizza the pinnacle of culinary design, especially when it comes from like Papa John's. Sorry, Papa John's, but I don't like your pizza. Is horrible to me, right? I mean, you know, that to me is where I'm like, okay, listen, you can like what you like, but let's not get crazy here. Poll real quick, by the way. This is chain pizza here. Chain pizza. Who wins? Who's your favorite? We got what? We got the Hut. We got Hut. We got Domino's. We got Papa John's. What else is there? You guys have, is Rascal House Pizza somewhere else? Who else is there? I feel like I'm forgetting a pizza place. Papa John's, Pizza Hut, Domino's. I don't remember who else there is. Other. Let's put other. All right. Pizza. Who's your favorite chain pizza? Oh, Little Caesar. All right, yeah, the other is Little Caesar, by the way. We'll call it. All right. The other on that poll, it's Little Caesar. Okay. I have my opinion, but no. Local chains are always better. That's fine. I'm not counting local chains. I'm talking about national-wide, international chains, right? Okay. Nin says, calling it cheese pizza sounds pretty accurate to me. Yeah, I've used that term before, Nin, and it's not mocking. It's not trying to make fun of it. It's not really it's just acknowledging the limitations, and the appeal. Ben says, I think we've reached singularity when it comes to D20. Pathfinder 2 is the ultimate expression of D20, in my opinion. I will agree with that. I think Pathfinder 2 is peak D20. Free archetype. I think in another year or two, everyone's going to be playing dual class with free archetype, with Paragon ancestry, because it's just like, it's like the peak D20 is like, how many feats, like it's like a meme, right? How many feats do you want in your game? And the answer is yes, right? Like we just keep adding feats and feats and feats, and then people are like, that's not enough. I need free archetype. 10 more feats. 11 more feats. Let's go. 10 more feats. And it's like, okay, I'm a dual class character with free archetype, with racial paragon, and I've also doubled up the number of general feats you get. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Like, we're going to be at the point where every time you level, you gain 6 feats. It's going to be crazy. Especially as they add more classes. You think they're going to stop? There's going to be 30 classes soon. And people are going to be like, oh, there's so many classes. I'm never going to get a chance to play them all. I have to play dual class plus free archetype, because how am I ever going to get to experience, I want to be a kineticist, gunslinger, vigilante, and I'm never going to have an opportunity to do that. So I need to dual class plus free archetype. To be fair, we're not that broken. We could be triple classing. Well, we're just dual classing plus FA. 2X plus FA. You know how we do it. All right. So that's true. Counterpoint, you can't out pizza the Hut. PF2 is cheese pizza. House rules are just toppings you throw on at home. Yeah, that's right. PF2 is like the cheese pizza. And then like someone's like, oh, I'm very fancy. I've got some, got a spice blend of oregano and some actual real Parmesan cheese that I like to grate on top. Okay. That's good. Oh, hey, Rain Hunter. Cam. Nice. Cool. Didn't know your name. Thank you. Dual class is enough. Dual class. Oh, God. You'd be surprised how many people are probably out there playing. Okay. So here we go. The winner of our poll. 22% said Pizza Hut. By the way, Pizza Hut would have been my favorite. Only 4% said Papa John's. So that is correct. 30% said other, and winner is Domino's Pizza at 43%. I'm not going to hate on that. Domino's is okay. I would play +1 class per level. Does that mean every time you gain a level, you gain a new class? So like by the time you get to 20th level, you have 20 classes? Is that how that works? We have a couple good local chains here in Cleveland. There's one called Rascal House. They're pretty good. 20 classes by level 20. All right, I respect that. All right, folks, it's 10:30. We've gone long in the tooth here enough. Thank you again to everybody who came out and joined the conversation. That is what Knights of Last Call is all about. It's about conversating, talking about role-playing games, thinking about role-playing games, thinking for yourself. And Pathfinder 2 is just one role-playing game out of many, but taking a hard, long, deep look at these games, I promise you, it's going to make you a better player. It's going to make you a better game master. You're going to have more fun. You're going to run better campaigns. Or it can send you spiraling into a pit of despair and depression for which you will never be able to escape, somehow both loving and hating the thing that you've created. So, go either way. So, want to say on that positive note, good night, everybody. We will be back next week. No game next week. So Tuesday will be probably some sort of Game Master Q&A. And for our patrons, Monday, we are going to have our October Patreon Q&A. Remember, You still have 2 weeks left to get into our Northern Reaches game for Season 1. There's only about 2 months left to play in the game, but we are into an exciting end game scenario. New characters do get to start at higher level because the players have raised up the city of Northport to allow newer characters to come in, and there's even a bonus for the young and the brave newbies to play and gain experience at a faster rate to try to gain some levels there before the end of the campaign. And that'll also set you up perfectly to go into Season 2, which is going to start in 2023. And if you join at our champion level, you'll be able to still get a copy of Battle Cry issue number 2, which might be coming out tonight. This is our monthly e-zine where we are publishing our thoughts, articles, essays, house rules, systems, feats, a whole enchilada of different content, predominantly focused on Pathfinder 2 and D20. But as we gain more and more experience with publishing this thing and gain more and more friends and talented folks helping us put together a magazine, I do hope to use it to explore many of my other interests, which of course include role-playing games like Powered by the Apocalypse and Blades in the Dark and Legend of the Five Rings, etc., etc., etc. So, awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you again very, very much. And I want to say thank you so much. And we'll see you next time on Night of Last Call. Peace.